Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku Was a Demon and Got Trained by Mirko to be #1 Hero Part 1. Before we start, please go support PresidentThanos for writing that awesome fanfic. Mirko is patrolling for the last time that day. People intermittently come up for autographs or to point towards suspicious activity, so nothing weird, until something catches her eye. A teenager with shoulder-length green hair that has red on the last few centimeters, and pink eyes that have slits for pupils. He sees her and runs off, and she gives chase. Meeting. Mirko, one of the top pro heroes in Japan, otherwise known as Rumi Yasujiyama, was patrolling one afternoon. Nothing big was happening. The occasional drunken argument to break up was the extent of the day's action. Civilians would occasionally walk up to her for an autograph or to point towards yet another set of dunk men to be separated. She was walking down the street, bored out of her mind. She loved fighting. It was a big reason she became a hero. Yes, saving lives was the main reason, but kicking ass was easily number 2. Her quirk, Rabbit, made literally kicking ass way more fun as well since it strengthened her legs to insane levels. It also had the bonus of giving her rabbit ears and a tail. Said ears came in handy when she heard something fall in a nearby alley. She quickly looked over to see someone. She saw a teenager. He was roughly 160 centimeters 5 feet 5 inches. Had shoulder-length hair with red tips, and light pink eyes that had slit pupils. He was wearing loose-fitting clothing which was clearly too big for him. His pants were tied with ropes at the waist and ankles. The sweatshirt he was wearing was green, and clearly had a broken zipper, since it revealed he didn't have a shirt on underneath, and the only things he had on his feet appeared to be worn-out sandals. Their eyes met, and he took off, seemingly scared of the rabbit hero, and she quickly gave chase. She hopped around the alleyways, surprised at his speed, but it was still no match for hers. She caught up to him within a minute, jumped on him, and pinned him to the ground. Rumi. All right, kid, what's got you scared of me? I don't bite, or are you running 'cause I might arrest you? The boy started struggling against her hold, but it was pointless to even try. Roger, He eventually started pounding on her arms to make her let him go. Rumi. So you don't want to talk? Fine, then guess I'll just have to bring you in. Oh, and stop pounding, it won't help you any. The boy quickly grew a frightened look on his face, and started shaking his head. He also extended his hand, which had razor-sharp nails on the fingers, and started writing on the building next to them. She read it out loud once he was finished. Rumi. Quirk no let talk. Okay then, but you can write then, so give me one good reason not to take you in. He quickly scribbled more shortened sentences into the bricks, and she read them again. Rumi. Innocent, but Quirk make me arrested. Swear haven't done anything. I sorry, wasted time. Alright, now I'm curious, what's your quirk, kid? He shook his head. Rumi. Ugh, how about this? Tell me your quirk and I won't take you to the police. The boy contemplated her offer, and quickly wrote a short description. Rumi. Demon, but different. I know, eat people for power, can't give blood, can't talk. Police arrest all demon. Wow, okay. Don't you have a home? Parents? He simply wrote 4 words. Mom, dead, dad, hate. She couldn't even read those words out loud, she simply picked the boy up off the ground. Rumi. Alright. Well, I guess because of your circumstances, I'll have to take you under my care. As much as I don't want to, I have no choice. Follow me until my patrol's over, then we'll head back to my place. Actually, scratch that, we're getting you some clothes before we head home. The boy just nodded and began to follow her out of the alley. The rest of her patrol went smoothly, only a couple more drunkards. One even tried to run, but the kid got to him. Rumi figured it was a way of paying her back. Eventually her patrol ended. She took him to a store and bought him some clothes. They got some weird looks, but she brushed them off as they left. She looked over at the boy to find him smiling the most innocent and happy smile she'd ever seen. They made it to her apartment in under an hour. She led him over to a door and opened it, to show the room inside. Rumi. This is the guest room, though it's yours now. Now go get situated, I make us something to eat. You should shower too. Oh yeah, before I forget, what's your name? The boy quickly looked around, she did too before she realized he didn't want to damage the apartment. She quickly got him a piece of paper and a pen and he scribbled his name down. Ah. He handed the paper to her. Rumi. Izuku Midoriya, huh? Nice name. Now go. Dinner will be ready in a bit. He nodded and went into his room, taking his clothes with him. He exited after half an hour, freshly out of the shower and with new clothes on. He walked over to the kitchen to find Rumi batting a large fire with a towel. Izuku grabbed a pot lid and some baking soda, and put both on the fire. Izuku. Ra. Rumi looked at him curiously, wondering what the questioning hum was for, when she got an idea of what it was. Rumi. I'm alright if that's what you're asking. The fire didn't touch me. The number 5 hero's a lot tougher than that. I'm just gonna order a pizza if that's okay with you. Izuku let out a small giggle as he walked over to the phone and handed it to her. She thanked him and ordered. They ate and went to sleep that night, and Izuku started to change. He doesn't feed on flesh for power, but something else. Surprise. Rumi woke up to the sound of someone cooking and an amazing smell. She got up and walked out of her room towards the kitchen, and she saw Izuku cooking. He turned and smiled. Izuku, ah. This was a familiar routine they had created within the first few days. Izuku would often wake up before Rumi so he would make breakfast for the two before she left to do hero work. Today was no different. She had recently picked up a case and had to work all week on it, leaving Izuku to his own devices most of the time. She walked over and sat at the table as Izuku gave her a plate of eggs and bacon and sat across from her with his own. Rumi. Thanks Midoriya, you're way better at cooking than me. He nodded and they ate. He saw her out the door and walked over to the couch to relax and watch the TV. Later on he was on his phone, which Rumi bought him so they could keep in touch, when he heard a knock at the door. He got up to answer it, thinking it was something Rumi had ordered, but when he opened the door, he was face to face with another hero, the number 10 hero Ryukyu to be exact. Ryukyu. Oh, my apologies, I guess this is the wrong apartment. Do you know where my friend Rumi Yasujiyama lives? He nodded and pointed inside the apartment. Izuku. Ryukyu. You mean she lives here? But you're here. What's going on? Izuku took out his phone and showed her the text between him and Rumi to prove they were roommates. He then led her inside, sat her down at the table, and got her some water. Ryukyu. Why thank you. What is your name? He typed it out on his phone and showed her. Ryukyu. Well, it's nice to meet you, Midoriya. If you don't mind me asking, why don't you talk? Izuku on phone Quirk. Ryukyu. Ah, okay. You seem awfully young. How old are you? Izuku, 15, don't ask, personal. She just nodded and they kept talking for a few hours until they heard the door open. Rumi yelling. I'm back, Midoriya. Izuku loudly Ra. He picked Ryukyu up over his head, carried her over to the door, and showed her to Rumi like a kid with a present. Rumi started laughing. Once she calmed down, she walked over to the couch and Izuku put Ryukyu down. Rumi. So I see you've met Midoriya. Ryukyu. Yes. I was confused when I saw him. I almost thought I had the wrong apartment. They kept talking for a while, then suddenly Ryukyu had to go, leaving Rumi and Izuku alone. She suddenly spoke up. Rumi. Hey, Midoriya. Izuku. Ah? Rumi. What do you want to be? Like just an ordinary citizen or a hero or something else? Izuku pulled out his phone. Izuku hero. She nodded. Rumi. Well, the entrance exam for UA High is next month, so I'll help you train. I know you want to prove a demon doesn't have to be bad, so I won't give you a recommendation. Get ready for hell, Midoriya. Izuku nodded, his face full of excitement and determination. Rumi. My agency has a full gym inside and a couple of sparring rooms. We'll use those. Now let's get some food, huh? Izuku got up and walked into the kitchen as Rumi turned on the TV. After a few minutes she heard Izuku yelp, something fall, and fire. She immediately turned around to see a pillar of pink flames rising from a knife Izuku dropped that had his blood on it. She also saw Izuku back away from the fire, which died down on its own. She then walked over and picked up the knife. Rumi. Midoriya. You know how demon quirks usually get special abilities after eating people? Izuku just nodded as she walked over and grabbed his hand. Rumi. Trust me. She then slid the knife through his palm and took it back out. She also watched as the cut quickly closed. She took a step back and held up the knife. Rumi. I need you to focus on the blood that's on this knife, and try whatever you just did. He nodded and focused. He could feel the blood, as if it was still a part of him that could be used. It felt like a new muscle. He tried to flex it, and when he did, the knife ignited in Rumi's hand, but it didn't burn her. She looked at it, and even touched the flames directly. Rumi. Wow. Flames that don't burn. Wait, no, that wouldn't make any sense, but what else could it be? She noticed Izuku typing on his phone. Izuku, maybe only hurt who want. Rumi. That's a good idea, we'll have to check tomorrow. For now, we can just eat leftovers. She reached into the fridge and pulled out some leftover food from the day before and she heated it up. Entrance exams and dinner with old friends. Rumi trained Izuku for a whole month for the UA entrance exam, and she didn't hold back. Because of his regenerative ability, she was able to go as hard as she wanted. She never hurt him too bad, but a few bones were broken on a daily basis. He was just glad she wasn't kicking limbs off, and because of her training, Izuku had quickly picked up a kick-focused fighting style. Now he was standing in front of the gates, admiring the buildings around him. He walked towards the hero course testing building and sat down. Once he got inside, suddenly a blonde guy sat next to him. Izuku didn't pay him any mind until he spoke up. Deku? Is that you? At the mention of his old nickname, Izuku looked over, and now recognized the boy as his old friend, Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku. He wrote on a blank paper he had with him. Izuku, Kaken been a while. Can't talk cause quirk. Bakugo. Yeah, it has been, hasn't it? Like 3 years, right? What happened? Izuku looked down, saddened by the memory, but wrote on the paper again. Izuku, Dad threw out after Mom died. But don't worry. Have great friend who takes care. Bakugo put his hand on Izuku's shoulder and nodded. President Mike then started talking. Partway through, Izuku asked Bakugo to clarify something and started writing on that paper again. Then someone with blue hair and wearing glasses spoke up and asked about the fourth robot, before suddenly turning his attention to Izuku and Bakugo. And you two, you've been talking and passing notes this whole time. If you two can't focus and take this seriously, then get out. Bakugo stood up to defend them. Bakugo, yelling. Well, excuse me, you damn extra, my friend here was confused and asked me something in the notes. He needs to write, he can't speak because of his quirks, so maybe next time you decide to comment on something, you should think about why it's happening. He sat down and the boy apologized to them. President Mike continued the description of the exam. When he finished, everyone got up and walked towards the grounds they were given. Bakugo. You and this friend of yours should come over for dinner tonight. We haven't moved, so you know where we live. See you there, Deku. He then branched off from Izuku and went to his assigned exam area. Izuku was the last one to make it to his area, and got there as the gates were opening. He quickly ran inside, managing to get to the front of the crowd before most were inside. He started taking out robots. After a while he deduced that he was at around 80 points, when he suddenly felt a big rumble, then heard destruction. When he looked towards the sounds, he saw the gigantic zero-pointer. He was about to run when he heard a girl cry out. He turned and saw a brown-haired girl trapped under a bunch of rubble. He ran towards her, and started moving the rubble off of her. He picked her up and started running as the zero-pointer grew closer. Soon President Mike ended the exam. Thank you, I thought I was going to die. What's your name? Izuku bent down and started scraping his nails along the asphalt. Izuku Midoriya. Thank you, Midoriya. I'm Achiko Uraraka. I hope we see each other in class. Izuku nodded and put her down for recovery girl to heal up. He then went back to the apartment to tell Rumi about dinner. He opened the door and walked inside. She greeted him as he walked straight for a whiteboard she installed and started writing. Izuku, met old friend. Invited to dinner at Bakugo house. Tonight. He then walked to his room to get ready as she read the message. She sighed, knowing he would probably drag her anyway, and went to get ready too. It took a while to get there, but they had reached the Bakugo household. They got out of the car and Izuku knocked on the door. A commotion could be heard when he did so. Mitsuki, yelling, "Get down here, brat, your friends are here." Katsuki, yelling, "I know you old hag, I heard the knock." Footsteps could be heard as Katsuki opened the door, and his face went from one of annoyance to shock as he saw Rumi. He let them in and led them to the living room. Katsuki, "So you're the friend who's been taking care of Deku? How long have you known him?" Rumi, "I've known this guy for about a month and a half. Yes, I know how long he's been alone." Katsuki nodded before calling out. Katsuki, yelling, "Old hag dad, get in here, you'll want to meet them, you'll like them, I promise." A minute later both parents walked into the room, and their faces lit up with shock and joy. Mitsuki ran over to hug the boy. Mitsuki, "Oh my god, Izuku, it's been so long, where have you been, are you alright?" Rumi, "Ahem. Definitely not the highest ranking female hero sitting on your couch." Izuku laughed a little and patted her shoulder after Mitsuki released him. Masaru, "Sorry, we're just relieved he's okay. Izuku, would you like me to make you some katsudon? I know fish wasn't exactly your favorite." Izuku, excited, "Ra." Mitsuki and Masaru looked at him confused. Rumi then spoke up. Rumi, "His quirk took away his speech, he's very excited about your katsudon." They nodded in understanding. Masaru went to the kitchen to make Izuku's food while everyone else started talking. As soon as Masaru was done, he called everyone over to the table and set their food in front of them. They started eating, but then Rumi heard a sound she was familiar with now. Izuku was only able to use sounds, but that just meant he was easier to read. There was one sound he always made when getting ready to use exploding blood, as Rumi called it, even though it was just fire. She heard the nearly inaudible grunt, and turned to see a few drops of blood fall into the bowl. She realized he was trying to heat it back up, but they sank, meaning the room was about to become a katsudon splash zone. Rumi, "Midoriya, don't you dare!" He ignited the blood, and everyone got covered in his food. The bowl was also spouting pink flames, which died down after a minute. Mitsuki got everyone towels to dry off with. Izuku, Rumi, "That's what happens when you use it on food, Midoriya. I tried to warn ya." Mitsuki, "Was that his quirk? How does fire blood have anything to do with speech, and where did the cut go?" Rumi looked over to Izuku, who nodded, letting her tell them about his quirk. Rumi, "It's because of what his quirk is. As you know, there's different types of quirks: emitter, transformation, and mutation. But recently, a new type has been emerging." Masaru, "Yeah, demon types, right?" Rumi, "Yeah, they're all largely the same, with few differences. One commonality is that they need to eat people to get stronger. Now Midoriya here has a demon type, but he's different. He doesn't need to eat people, there isn't even an urge to do so. He gained what people are calling a blood demon art overnight." The advantage of not needing human meat to power up brought the drawback of no speech. The Bakugos looked at Izuku amazed. Katsuki walked over to him and put his hand on Izuku's shoulder. Katsuki, "Let's be heroes together, Deku." Izuku nodded and smiled. They talked for a few hours before Izuku and Rumi headed back to their apartment. First day. Rumi, "If I see anything about Yue being on fire with pink flames, I will personally kick your ass myself, Midoriya." Izuku, "Humph." She shoved him out the door and walked with him to the train station before splitting off from him. He got on the train and rode it to the next stop. He got off and walked a couple miles before coming across Yue. Izuku excitedly ran inside and found the door of Class 1A, the class he would be with for the next 3 years of his life. He opened the door to find Bakugo being yelled at by the guy with glasses from the exam, who turned to face him and rushed over. "I apologize for my behavior during the entrance exam. Your performance saving that girl proves you're far superior to me when it comes to being a hero. Let us restart. I am Tenya Ida, who are you?" Izuku, Ida. "Oh, right. Sorry, I'll learn it later then. Suddenly another voice was heard, this one feminine. Uraraka. Oh, it's you, Midoriya, nice to see you made it. Izuku nodded, as he watched a bumpy, yellow, sleeping bag worm its way into the room and stand up. If you're here to make friends, I suggest you leave. I am your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. You will call me Mr. Aizawa. Now, take these P uniforms and meet me outside. He placed a box of uniforms on the front podium and left. The class got up, grabbed their uniforms, and went to the locker rooms. Once they were outside, Aizawa told them about the tests he was making to do instead of normal orientation. When Ishido said it would be fun, Aizawa put a condition that last place would be expelled and explained how life was unfair when Uraraka complained. He called Bakugo up to throw a ball using a strong explosion, and when he did, the distance was over 700 meters. The first test was the 50-meter dash. Izuku lined up, as did Ishido, who had pink sparks of lightning around her and was secreting acid from her shoes. Aizawa started the timer, and they both took off, and Ishido beat Izuku by half a second. Izuku did well in the other tests, usually coming third or fourth. He even got first in the toe touch because of his flexibility. Soon he was up last for the ball throw. He stepped up to the circle and grabbed a ball. Aizawa spoke up just before he threw it. Aizawa. Midoriya. I want you to use this exploding blood thing I was told you can do for this test, okay? Izuku nodded, and used one of his fingernails to puncture his index finger, drawing some blood, and smeared it all over his hand. He then got back into position and started his throw. Just before the ball left his hand, he ignited the blood, his hand was engulfed in pink fire, and the ball was launched. Izuku Ra. He looked over to Aizawa to see he got 693.7 meters with the blood. He smiled and walked over to a surprised class. Though one was looking at him oddly, the girl with the frog quirk had a curious look on her face and walked over to him. Hi. I'm Tsuyu Ajikaro, but my friends call me Tsu, and I usually speak what's on my mind. Izuku nodded and tilted his head to ask what she needed. Ajri. I was wondering what your quirk is. At first I thought it was super strength, but now I don't know. Karo. Izuku. He crouched down and wrote in the dirt. Izuku, find out later. Quirk doesn't let me talk. Nice to meet you, Ajri. Ajri. Alright. Nice to meet you too, Midoriya. Karo. She then walked back to where she was before as Aizawa revealed the scores and that he wasn't going to expel anyone. He ordered them to go inside and talk until lunch. Once they were in the classroom, Ishido decided that everyone should introduce themselves. Eventually Izuku was the last one. He looked over to Bakugo, who nodded and followed him to the whiteboard. Izuku, my name is Izuku Midoriya. My quirk isn't super strength or fire blood. It's part of the new quirk type, demon. Though it's different than normal, I don't need to eat people. The fire blood was my blood demon art called exploding blood. We think the reason I can't talk is because I don't need human meat, so a trade-off happened, speech for power. Izuku turned around and saw amazed faces, mostly. Some appeared weirded out but none looked fearful or disgusted, so Izuku was happy. Then the lunch bell rang and they all went to the cafeteria. Izuku was waiting when Lunch Rush walked over to him. LR. You're the Midoriya kid, right? Izuku nodded and Lunch Rush gave him a bowl of katsudon. LR. A little rabbit told me you liked katsudon. Have a good day. Izuku smiled and sat down at an empty table. Ajri and Bakugo soon joined him. Bakugo. Where'd you get the katsudon, Deku? I didn't see any on the menu. Izuku took out his phone. Izuku, he just gave it to me. Bakugo nodded as Ajri spoke up. Ajri. How do you two know each other? Bakugo. Our parents were friends, which made us friends. Hell, we were practically family. Ajri. Were? What happened? Katsuki paused and then spoke in a quiet voice. Katsuki. None of your damn business. Besides, it's Izuku's story to tell, not mine. Ajri. Sorry, I must have struck a chord. Karo, I can leave if you want. Izuku. Ah. She looked at him as he shook his head, signaling for her to stay. They talked a bit more, Just before lunch ended, Izuku slid a piece of paper over to her. Izuku, want to come over? You'll love my roommate, I promise. Address. Bakugo saw the paper too. Bakugo. I'll come over too. I want to see just what kind of place that woman has you living in. Izuku whipped his head around and smacked Bakugo on the head. Bakugo. Oh, fine. Sorry for almost scaring her off. Izuku. Humph. Adi laughed and replied. Ajri. Sure, I'll come over. Karo, oh, and call me Tsu, both of you. Izuku smiled, then the bell rang for them to leave, and Izuku practically ran back to the classroom. Feelings. The first day of school ended, and Izuku was waiting by the gates for his two friends. Bakugo and Tsu showed up after a few minutes, and they started walking. They soon made it to the station and got on. After a half-hour ride they got off and Izuku led them to the apartment. He heard that the shower was on, meaning Rumi came back early. Izuku loudly Rumi, yelling, Okay, I got your text by the way, just watch some TV or something, Midoriya. He brought them over to the couch, where he got an idea. Izuku ran to his room and came back with an old card game called Uno. He placed it down and looked up the rules on his phone. Tsu. It looks interesting, Midoriya. Karo, by the way, what's with all the Mirko merchandise around here? Just then Rumi came out, covered in bandages and some stitches above her eye. Tsu looked at her in shock, her eyes went wide. Tsu, your roommate is Mirko? Izuku nodded as he ran over to her, worried about her injuries, and adjusting the clearly haphazardly placed bandages she put on herself. Rumi. Yes, we are roommates. Midoriya, I'm okay. I'll be able to go back out there and kick ass next week. Izuku calmed down and dragged her over to the table he set Uno up on. Rumi. Uno? Haven't played this in ages. Get ready for the emotional trauma of a lifetime. The three teenagers grew nervous looks on their faces as Rumi dealt the cards. To say they were upset would be an understatement. Rumi, who had actually played the game and didn't expect to lose at all, had kicked the table across the room. Bakugo burned some of the cards, Izuku was sulking in a corner, and Tsu had left before any of that happened, saying she needed to cook for her siblings. Suddenly a knock came from the door and a voice called out. Ryukyu loudly. Rumi? Midoriya? R/I yelling. It's open /ah. Ryukyu opened the door to find the mess they had made. She walked over to Izuku and tapped on his shoulder. Ryukyu. Uno? He just nodded and got up. He helped her pick up after the group. He dragged the table back to where it was and pulled Bakugo off the floor. He passed out from rage. Ryukyu left after a while, realizing now wasn't the perfect time to be there. Rumi had also began drinking at one point and had passed out. Izuku picked her up and took her to her room. He put her on her bed and was about to leave when he heard her talking in her sleep. He turned to find her crying as well. Rumi, quietly. No. Don't go, please. Rabbit strong, I can kick bad guy but I promise. Mommy, please don't go. Come be. She suddenly sat straight up, tears running down her face. Izuku. She shook her head. Rumi, quietly. No. I'm not okay, Midoriya. Izuku placed a hand on her shoulder, then he sat down on the bed and hugged her tightly. Izuku. She hugged him back. Rumi. You should be getting to your room, Midoriya. I'll be fine, but you have school's ass to kick tomorrow. Instead of getting up, Izuku leaned sideways and pulled her down to the bed. He then pulled the covers over himself and a shocked Rumi. Izuku. Rumi. I guess this works, thank you, Midoriya. Instead of an answer, she just heard light breathing as sleep took hold of the boy. She chuckled a little before falling asleep along with him. The next morning Rumi woke up, feeling heavier than normal. She looked down to find Izuku, now on top of her. She smiled and started to shake him to wake him up. Rumi. Midoriya, dumbass Uno player. Those didn't work, so she used the last thing she could think of. Rumi. Cute demon boy. Time to get up. This seemed to get through to him as his eyes slowly opened to show his pink irises. Izuku. Rumi. We've gotta go, dipshit. Well, you do. I'm stuck in this apartment for the next week. The boy groaned. Rumi, I know my tits are comfy. How about this? You get up now, you can sleep here again. Izuku jolted up, face redder than her eyes, and went to his room to get ready immediately. Rumi, well, at least I know how to motivate him. The little perv. She laughed to herself as she heard the door close behind him when he left. She got up and walked out, seeing a plate of food he left for her. She sat down to eat and started thinking out loud. Rumi, didn't feel that bad though. Having someone there. Would he be interested in me? God no, Rumi, bad rabbit. He's a high schooler for God's sake. But he's cute and nice, plus those eyes. No, stop, control yourself. But Midoriya is, well, Midoriya. Plus those muscles he hides underneath that baggy clothing of his. God, kid. Just what are you doing to me? She finished eating her food and laid down on the couch, getting ready to be bored all day, when a knock came. Ryukyu called out, and she went to open it. She led Ryukyu over to the couch, and the Dragoon hero started to talk. Ryukyu, I wanted to talk about this yesterday, but you were busy. Are you sure it's wise to let Midoriya live here? Don't get me wrong, he's a good kid, but we don't even know what he feeds on yet for power. Not only that, but he's a 15-year-old teenager. God only knows what goes through his brain. Rumi, I can see where you're coming from with almost everything, except the age part. If you're worried about either of us being stuck in an apartment with a hormonal monster or something, you should be more worried about him. I have a rabbit Quirk, and it's April Ryuko. Though luckily it hasn't acted up yet. Ryukyu, except it already has Rumi. I passed him on the way here, he had your scent all over him. Rumi, that wasn't my Quirk, he slept in my bed last night. I had a nightmare, and he fell asleep after hugging me to calm me. It was nice. Ryuko, he's in high school. Rumi raised her, and so it was in front of Ryukyu's face. Rumi, up. I already went through that whole argument with myself. Don't need it again. Ryukyu just sighed and got up. Ryukyu, just do what you think is good for you and him, okay? Rumi nodded as Ryukyu left the apartment. Confession. Izuku entered the apartment and walked over to the couch where Rumi was sitting. He sat down and laid down, putting his head on her lap. Rumi, oh. So you think just because I wasn't mad this morning that you can just do things like this? He sat up and hummed an apology, which caused her to laugh a little. She pulled him back down to her lap. Rumi, I never said it wasn't okay. They sat there for a while, just watching TV, then Rumi started running her fingers through his hair. Izuku, Rumi, you like this? Izuku nodded and she kept going. After a few minutes he sat up and touched one of her ears. Her foot suddenly slammed into the floor, spooking Izuku. Rumi, oh sorry Midoriya. My ears are sensitive, they make me thump dot. Izuku, ah. After an hour Rumi turned the TV off, made Izuku sit up, and turned to him. Rumi, alright Midoriya. We need to have a talk. Izuku, Rumi, about you and me. God, how do I word this? I enjoyed your company last night, it helped me sleep. And it felt nice to have you there when I woke up too. Izuku's face went a little red. Rumi, you know me Midoriya, you know how I am. So you'll understand that when it comes to this feelings shit, I'm not that good at it. Izuku nodded and hugged her, she hugged back. Rumi, I know this might make things awkward, but do you think maybe you would go out with me? Izuku immediately broke the hug and started nodding. He pulled out a piece of paper and started writing. Izuku, I know we haven't known each other very long, but I like you. I really do. You're the first person who showed me kindness despite being a demon type. I was hoping to ask at some point, but now I don't. Also, just call me Izuku, thank you. Izuku then leaned in and gave her a quick kiss on the cheek. She grew a massive smile and pulled him in for a hug. They were so focused on each other they didn't hear the door open or the sound of footsteps walking towards them until it was too late. Ryukyu. Ahem. They both turned to look at the new arrival, who looked thoroughly unamused. She sat next to them on the couch. Ryukyu. So, Rumi, you gonna explain? Rumi. Izuku said yes. That's all. Now the only way this day could get better is if I got a call saying I could get back out there, kicking criminal ass, 5 days early. Izuku Ra. Ryukyu. I understand that, Rumi, but why? Midori is a high schooler, you're 27. Rumi. You do know we don't care about that, right? She pulled Izuku in tighter. Ryukyu. Ugh. Fine, you two win. But if something does happen, just know I did warn you. She then left the apartment to go patrol. Rumi leaned backwards and pulled Izuku down with her. Rumi. So, what ya wanna do? I just asked you out, what should the date be? Izuku pulled out his phone and started typing. He showed her that he searched up a movie. Rumi. I've been wanting to see that. Sure, we can go now actually. There's a showing in half an hour, come on. She dragged Izuku out the door and down to the nearby mall which had a theater. They made it in time and bought a couple of tickets. The movie was a full 3 hours long. As they walked out of the theater, Izuku spotted a familiar head of pink hair. Ashido was walking by, along with Hagakure and Kaminari. He remembered something about them agreeing to hang out that day. He hid behind a pillar as they walked past. Rumi. What was that about, Izuku? He pulled out his phone. Izuku, classmates. Pink one chatty, might spill to school if she thinks we're on a date. Rumi. Then let's go before they come back then. They made their way back to the entrance, careful not to fall into the wandering gaze of Ashido. They were about to walk out when she called out to Izuku and ran over. Ashido. Hey, it's Midoriya, what ya doing here? She finally noticed Rumi standing next to him. Ashido. Oh my god! You didn't tell me you knew Mirko. Hi, I'm a big fan. Rumi. It's nice to meet one of his Midoriya's classmates. Sadly, I'm injured right now and can't kick ass until next week. Ashido seemed to have not heard Rumi almost say Izuku's first name, most likely due to her fangirling over her. Izuku and Rumi were able to leave after a few minutes of talking and made it safely back to the apartment. Izuku cooked up some food for them which they ate. They went to bed after a couple more hours. Rumi let him sleep in her bed again. He cuddled up next to her, and she held him tight. They both fell asleep that night, ready for any challenge thrown their way. Battle training. Izuku was sitting at his desk, and if someone asked, he would have admitted he was thinking of his roommate. He and Rumi had gotten closer over the week they had been together. Was it fast? Yes, sure, even from his eyes. Did he really care about how fast they got together? No, not at all. He was looking forward to getting back to tell her, well, right, about the hero lesson they were going to have, since it was their first practical lesson. Suddenly All Might barged through the door, yelling about how he was entering. Izuku was too busy mentally fanboying to really listen to the man. He started to listen once he calmed down though. Now then. Today we will be doing combat training, but what is a hero without their gear? He pressed a button on the podium, and numbered cases popped out of the far wall. Now go change into the suits you submitted to UA, and meet me at ground B. Izuku got up and reached for his case, which was at the top of the wall, which he couldn't reach. Izuku, Tsu jumped up and grabbed it for him. He nodded a thank you and they left. Once they were in the locker room, Izuku noticed a hole in the wall in the direction of the girls' locker room, so he put a bead of blood inside just in case. Before anyone was done changing, Izuku heard Mineta talking. Mineta. Guys, look, our predecessors left us a holy grail. There's peephole into the ladies' room. Ida. Mineta, I suggest you stop this. UA students should not be doing things this vulgar. Mineta stopped listening and started ranting about the girls' bodies. Izuku, sick of his remarks, ignited the blood he put in the hole, leaving a burn mark on Mineta's face. The small boy then turned to see Izuku's pink eyes in his face, slit pupils dilating like a cat ready to pounce. Izuku. Growling. Mineta. Why you know what, Ida? You're right, too vulgar for us first years. He quickly went back to his case and started changing again, as did Izuku, though he was now keeping an eye on ball-haired student. He stayed until Mineta left, and followed him to the rest of the class. As he emerged from the hallway, Tsu and Bakugo walked over to him. Tsu, great hero suit Midoriya Karo, and the girls are thankful for you stopping my Neta. Izuku looked to Bakugo. Bakugo, of course I would tell them, you deserve the thanks Deku. Like the get-up by the way. Izuku smiled and they walked over to the rest of the class. All Might described how they would be fighting over a bomb in teams of 2 indoors. He made the draw lots to choose the teams. Izuku got A as well as Uraraka. All Might then reached into 2 other boxes and drew Team A and Team D. AM. Team A shall be the heroes, Team D are the villains. You both have 5 minutes to plan and strategize. Use it wisely, now go. The 2 teams walked over to the building and the villains went inside. Uraraka. So, Midoriya. Got any plans? Izuku just bent down and started writing in the concrete with his nails. Izuku, Bakugo go for me. You try for the bomb. I join after dealing with Bakugo. Uraraka, alright. All Might announced the start of the trial after a few minutes, and they headed inside. Izuku and Uraraka had made it to the 2nd floor and were about to round a corner when Bakugo rocketed around it, tackling Izuku, and letting Uraraka go ahead. Bakugo. Let's see just how strong you are, Deku. I won't let just anybody be number 2. Izuku growled and pushed Bakugo off, the force throwing him down the hall. Once they both recovered, they charged. Izuku sent a kick towards Bakugo's chest, but the blonde boy used an explosion to dodge up. The kick just missed his shin. Izuku's momentum carried him forward, and Bakugo hit Izuku's back with an explosion, sending him into the wall at the end of the hall. Bakugo landed and saw blood leaking from where Izuku was stuck, before seeing it ignite. Izuku pulled himself out of the wall and started kicking the flaming rubble towards Bakugo. Explosions could be heard as Bakugo was forced to dodge. Izuku used the rubble as a distraction to close the distance and pinned Bakugo on the ground. Before he could get up, Bakugo felt something warm start to fall and spread on him. He looked up and saw Izuku dragging his nails through his arm, drenching Bakugo in blood. Izuku, ah. Bakugo. Good plan. I can't move without you igniting this, can I? Izuku nodded in confirmation and walked off. He then heard Uraraka over their radio. Uraraka. Midoriya. I found the bomb on the 5th floor. Ida spotted me, thought. He grunted a response and quickly made his way to Uraraka's location. He walked into the room to find Ida running around with the bomb, and Uraraka failing to touch either. He lunged at Ida and kicked him in the side, sending him flying and shattering his armor. He got up and started running at Izuku, engines roaring. Izuku blocked a kick Ida threw, which cracked his arm a little. Ida backed off and started to go for Uraraka, who was almost at the bomb. Izuku rushed and had to block yet another bone-cracking kick. His bones healed almost instantly, but he knew Uraraka's wouldn't. Uraraka then touched the bomb and Izuku wrote in the concrete. Izuku, make weaker kicks. Both ones I blocked cracked my bones. None of our classmates can heal like me. Ida quickly apologized as they went back to the viewing area, and everyone minus the 2 teams and Tsu looked at Izuku weirdly. Izuku tilted his head in confusion as Bakugo and Tsu walked over to him. Bakugo. There, a bit creeped out by the blood-drenched thing. Izuku ignited the blood, and since he didn't see Bakugo as his opponent, the pink flames didn't burn him. Instead, they left his suit looking as if it wasn't drenched in blood mere minutes before. The rest of the matches went by. Most were interesting, others not, but Izuku enjoyed watching them all. After school, Izuku walked into the apartment and sat next to Rumi on the couch. Rumi. How'd it go? Izuku She laughed. Rumi. So you had fun kicking ass? Izuku nodded and pulled out his phone. Izuku, how's hero work? Rumi. You wouldn't believe it, but my 2nd day back, and I'm already getting called in for a big drug bust. Those snot-nosed druggies didn't know what hit them. Izuku giggled and gave her a kiss. Rumi. I'm still getting used to that. Who'd you fight anyway? Izuku, Bakugo and Ida. I was teamed up with Uraraka. Rumi. Oh? You bored with me already? Is she a replacement? Her teasing caused Izuku to panic and hug her. What she didn't expect were the wet spots she could feel coming from him, He was crying. She quickly hugged him back tight. Rumi. Whoa. I was kidding, I know you'd never do that, Izuku. He looked up at her with tear-filled eyes. She responded by giving him a kiss, which cheered him right up. He described the whole match to her on his phone, and she said she was proud of him. After dinner, he fell asleep with her on the couch. His power grew with each passing day. But was it growing fast enough for the danger right around the corner? Only time would tell. USJ. Izuku was sitting on a bus with the rest of his classmates, all in their hero suits. They were going to an off-campus facility for rescue training. As they were riding, Tsu started talking. Tsu. Bakugo, about your quirk. Kero. Bakugo. What is it, Kermit? Tsu. Is your explosive sweat only on your hands? Bakugo. No, it's all over. I only use my hands because I can direct them better. Why? Tsu. Kero, I was just thinking it might be better if you flew using your feet, leaving your hands free for attacking all the time. Bakugo grunted, and looked at his hands. Bakugo. I've been using my hands for so long that I never thought of using anywhere else. That's a good idea. The conversation quickly spread and turned into a talk about everyone's quirks. Bakugo and Tsu had to speak for Izuku. Eventually the bus stopped and Aizawa ordered them to get off. When they got off, 13 the rescue hero was standing there, waiting for them. She quickly led them inside, calling the building the USJ, and talking about how dangerous quirks actually were no matter how they're used. Like her black hole, she uses it to save, but she could easily kill thousands with it. All of a sudden a giant purple, misty portal opened in the center of the building and many thugs started walking out of it. One man in particular caught both Izuku's and Bakugo's eyes. He was a relatively tall man, with short messy, black hair, a face adorned with small freckles, wearing a tan trench coat, and he was breathing a small, yet intimidating fireball. Hisashi Midoriya was in the building. Izuku and Bakugo didn't even notice the man covered in hands, or the giant beast of a man, or thing, standing next to him. Kirishima. Cool, they even have fake villains for us to fight off. Aizawa. Get out of here, those aren't fake, we're being attacked. Bakugo. Me and Izuku can't. I can't tell you what, but something personal is here and we have to take care of it. Aizawa. Not like I could stop you two while fighting. Just make it quick. He put his goggles on and leapt down to the main group, but Izuku and Bakugo watched Hisashi walk into the fire zone. They snuck off to the side, careful not to be seen, and made their way inside. Izuku claimed a building while Bakugo flew up. They started looking around, and spotted Hisashi, walking up the road towards them, not having seen them yet. Izuku stood on the edge as Bakugo landed next to him, and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Izuku nodded, meaning he was okay. Izuku loudly ah. Hisashi froze, and looked to the building the two teens were on. His smile immediately turned into a frown as his eyes locked with Izuku's. Izuku then jumped down and landed in front of the man, Bakugo joining him quickly. Hisashi. Well. If it isn't the demon brat, come to take my life too? Shouldn't be too hard, after all your mother died because of you. If she just didn't love you, she wouldn't have stepped between you and that gunman. Oh well, can't change the past, but I can ensure no one else I love ever dies because of you, Izuku. Get out of the way, Katsuki. Bakugo stepped up to the man. Bakugo. No. Izuku is my best friend, I won't let you hurt him. And don't say it's for my, or my parents' sake. We would give our lives for him, just like Aunt Inko, just like you should too, you sad excuse of a father. Hisashi. Suit yourself. Demons don't deserve love, and those that give it to them will be dragged down to hell with them. Bakugo. The devil's gonna have his hands full once he drags down our class. We're all in this together, you mess with one of us, the rest will rise to face you. Hisashi. I don't see any of your classmates. Suddenly, Hisashi was hit into a building by a tail. Ojiro stepped towards the two. Ojiro. Who was that guy? Bakugo. Izuku's father. It's a long story, one you might hear in the future, but not now. Go find the rest of the class, I assume you were all scattered, we'll deal with Dad of the Year. Ojiro nodded and ran off as Hisashi pulled himself up from where he landed. Hisashi. Damn brats, that was cheap. Bakugo. Heroes don't need to fight fair, but if you insist. Go get him, Izuku. Call out if you need help. Izuku nodded and rushed Hisashi. The grown man was quick. He dodged a kick from Izuku and backed off. He breathed in and created a carpet of fire when he breathed back out. Izuku was pushed back, and his arms were charred. He looked at Hisashi, growled, and kicked a nearby wall to pieces. Hisashi looked confused as Izuku ripped into his arm and started pouring blood onto the rubble. Izuku picked up a blood-covered rock and threw it at Hisashi, who tilted his head to avoid it, but Izuku ignited it just as he moved his head. Hisashi, stunned by the pink flames, failed to dodge the flaming rubble Izuku was kick at him. Once he was out of rubble, Hisashi regained his composure long enough to see Izuku rush and kick him in the side, launching him inside of a building. By the time Izuku got there, Hisashi was gone. A crash could be heard, as well as All Might yelling plus ultra. When they left the fire zone and joined back up with the class, Tsu ran up to them and hugged them, crying. Tsu, I didn't know where you went, Karo. Thank God you two are alright. Izuku patted her back and she let them go. Izuku walked outside and immediately got pulled around a corner by Rumi, who hugged him tightly. Rumi, why didn't you call me or text me, dumbass? I could have lost you. Izuku hugged her tightly back. Izuku. Rumi. Just let me know if this kind of thing ever happens again, okay? Izuku nodded. They separated and walked back around the corner. They then heard a collective gasp from 16 teenagers. They turned to see Class 1A, well, the ones who didn't know about Izuku knowing Rumi, staring at them. Izuku locked eyes with Bakugo, then Tsu, and then Mina, who all nodded, knowing they'd be the ones to explain. He and Rumi then left, and went back to the apartment where they relaxed with each other for the rest of the day. It was late. Izuku was walking past Rumi's room to go to his own. The punishment for not even texting was 3 days in his own bed. As he walked past, he heard soft crying. He put his ear to the door and listened, as Rumi had another nightmare. Rumi muffled. Aizu, please, no. I don't want you to go, not now. I can't be alone after just getting you. Please, Aizu, I'm not strong enough to handle this. Please don't go, not like Mom. She stopped as she woke up. Izuku rushed in and gave her a hug without giving her any time to think. He dragged her down and pulled her close to his chest, which calmed her down. Rumi. Heh. Guess the punishment can wait, just a few nights. She pulled the covers back up and they fell asleep. Sports Festival PT1. They had all trained for 2 weeks for this day, the day of the UA Sports Festival. After the USJ, they were given a few days off, and when they came back, Aizawa told them that the festival was in 2 weeks, and that hero lessons were postponed for 2 weeks for them to train. Izuku was in his P uniform, in a small waiting room with the rest of the class. As they were waiting, Todoroki walked over to Ishido. Todoroki. Ishido, it's pretty clear you're one of the strongest people in this class, which is why I will defeat you, with my ice only. Those of you who came here, hoping to be friends and team up, will lose. We're competing against each other today. This is a declaration of war. Izuku walked over and smacked Todoroki on top of the head. Izuku ra. Bakugo. He wants you to stop being rude, icy hot. Todoroki just gave them both a cold glare and walked back to his seat. President Mike started talking after a minute, which was their cue to go, so they walked out of the room and out into the middle of the giant arena they would be competing in. President Mike introduced all the classes and Midnight walked onto the platform in front of the students. Midnight. Would the first-year representative Izuku Midoriya please walk up here and give us a speech? Izuku immediately looked worried, but Bakugo and Tsu put their hands on his shoulders. Tsu followed him up to the platform. He immediately started etching his speech into the metal for Tsu to read into the microphone. Tsu. I apologize for not speaking myself. My quirk took my speech long ago. Karo, that's why my friend here is talking instead. I want everyone to know that I wholeheartedly believe that anyone can be a hero. Karo, whether they have an emitter type quirk, a transformation type, a mutation type, are quirkless, or are like me, and have the newly discovered demon type. No matter what, you too can be a hero. Kero. The crowd erupted in mixed reactions. Some cheered at his brave declaration while others booed at Yui letting in a demon type. Aizawa quickly came on the speakers to defend him. Aizawa yelling, "Hey Hui, how dare you! Whoever booed at Midoriya should go home, hang up their costumes, and rethink their careers. I will not tolerate quirk-based discrimination ever, especially not today. Keep your opinions to yourselves or be escorted out." The crowd quieted down after the outburst from Aizawa, and the two teens walked off of the platform. Midnight then walked back on, spun a wheel, and it landed on obstacle course. The students all lined up at the start, and waited. The buzzer went off, and the students started running, but Izuku could feel the air getting colder. He quickly tore into his arm, splattering blood around him, and on other students. Suddenly, the ground became frozen, but Izuku and the students around him were immediately freed when Izuku ignited the scattered blood. As soon as his legs were free, Izuku rocketed forwards, and past Todoroki, who looked surprised. Izuku ran underneath all the robots that were supposed to be an obstacle and made it to a pit obstacle with pillars to get across. Izuku jumped to the first pillar, and when he jumped to the next, almost fell. He had to dig into the rock with his nails. He climbed back up and kept leaping from pillar to pillar, sometimes needing to climb. He made it to the last obstacle, a minefield. He got an idea, and started digging the mines up, and stacking them. Many passed him while he was doing this, but he knew this would get him first again. Once the pile was about a minetta tall, he jumped on them, holding his arms up to protect himself. Since he didn't have a shield or anything, the pure force of about 15 non-lethal landmines tore off his arms, and the foot that landed on them. He flew forwards, passing Bakugo and Todoroki in the blink of an eye, and landed a few feet past the finish. The crowd gasped at his sacrifice. The students who crossed the finish line, and those who found his stray body parts, gagged. They all looked on amazed as he stood up, and his missing limbs regenerated in just a second. Bakugo walked over to him, placed his hand on his shoulder, and started laughing. He calmed down after a minute. Bakugo. "Oh, that was great. You looked amazing flying past me and copyright-free Zuko over there." Izuku giggled a little as Midnight started talking again, announcing the next event as a cavalry battle. Izuku's face paled as she revealed the 10 million points of first place. He looked over to Bakugo and Tsu, tears in his eyes. "Izuku. Ah?" They both nodded and joined him. They then started looking for a fourth member. They finally found an orange-haired girl they recognized as Itsuka Kendo from 1B, and walked over. Izuku tapped her shoulder, causing her to turn around. Izuku. Kendo. "What? Oh, you want me to join you guys?" "Sure." Izuku started drawing and writing his idea for placement in the dirt. Izuku, me on top, so I have access to both arms for exploding blood defense. Kaken and Tsu on back sides for mobility and defense, Kendo up front for attack and defense. They all nodded and Bakugo kicked out the plan so nobody else would see it. They got into position as the battle started. All the other teams rushed them. Izuku used both arms to throw blood down in front of them, and ignited it. They ran the other direction. Bakugo had to fend off attacks from Tokoyami and Dark Shadow, while Kendo was fighting off multiple attacks from different angles. Izuku made a small cut on his forehead, which stained the headband in blood. This deterred most of the teams, but Team Todoroki didn't give up. Eventually they were cornered, and Todoroki's team rushed them. Just as Todoroki was about to grab it, Izuku ignited the headband, which seemed to make Todoroki pause long enough for Izuku to dodge, and his team to get away. PM. And that's it, the cavalry battle is over. Sports Festival PT2. President Mike just ended the cavalry battle event, and started announcing the top 4 teams over the speakers. PM, loudly. In first place is Team Midoriya, in second place, Team Todoroki in third, Team Shinso, and finally, in fourth place, Team Ashido. Izuku hugged his teammates tightly. Midnight announced the next event as a tournament, and told the students to go have lunch while Cementos made the fighting platform. Izuku and his team walked into the arena, going towards the cafeteria, when Izuku heard a noise, It was a soft tapping sound, so quiet only his enhanced hearing was sensitive enough to hear it, and maybe some people with specific animal quirks, like rabbit. He walked towards the room it was coming from, and was pulled in once he was outside the door. A light switch was flipped, revealing Rumi, in casual clothes, with some fast food she had brought. Rumi, come on, you can't be that surprised, can you? Now let's eat. Izuku, ah. He smiled and sat down on a couch. She sat next to him, setting down the bag of food and handing him what she ordered for him. Rumi, good job so far. You better be ready to kick your friends' asses in this tournament, though. He simply nodded as he started eating. She kept talking to him as they ate. Eventually the classes were called to their respective stands. They kissed and walked to the 1A area, Rumi sticking around to see how his class was doing. When they got there, Midnight was announcing the matchups. Ashido was going first against Shinso from General Studies. Ashido had won, but barely. Her strength quirk activated subconsciously, breaking her finger and breaking her out of the trance she seemed to be in. She was able to win easily after that, even talking to the boy who seemed to be upset, more than normal for losing in the tournament. After a few more matches, Izuku was up against Aoyama. Rumi wished him luck, even though she knew he wouldn't need it, as he walked down. He walked onto the platform, Aoyama across from him. Midnight. Ready? Ayane. Oui, mademoiselle. Midnight start. Aoyama started shooting his laser in small bursts. Izuku charged, but Aoyama was making it difficult. Yes, he could just regenerate, but the lasers also pushed him back whenever he got hit. After a minute of getting nowhere, Izuku got an idea. He plunged all 5 fingers of his right hand into his left bicep, pulling out a large chunk of skin, muscle, and blood. He threw the bloody chunk at Aoyama at a speed that the boy couldn't react, and ignited it. The blood burned Aoyama, and broke his belt, making him focus on keeping the laser in, letting Izuku get in close. He rushed to Aoyama, and delivered a devastating kick to his chest. The creaking of stressed bones could be heard as Aoyama was launched off the platform, unconscious. Izuku picked him up as Midnight declared his victory, and took the boy to Recovery Girl. He walked back to the stands to see Rumi, surrounded by the rest of the class. He sat down at a seat away from the group to wait for his next match. He was watching Shiro get frozen by Todoroki, but suddenly heard 2 gasps, one from his class as he heard Rumi land next to him, presumably getting tired of his class and wanting to sit next to him. The other, from the wall separating 1A and 1B. When he looked over, a familiar, perpetually smug, blonde-haired boy, known as Monoma, was looking over the wall. Monoma. What? Ms. Mirko, why are you over there with the Class A losers? Especially when they have that demon with them. Usually, Rumi would just make a quick, humorous comeback, but the way he called Izuku demon just didn't sit right with her. Rumi. Well, just so you know, I have seen what these guys have had to fight. They're not losers. Now, this demon right here has a name. It's Izuku Midoriya, and you better remember that. She jumped over to the top of the wall, bended down, and looked Monoma in the eyes. Mirko. Because the next time you say demon like that, you won't be leaving a hospital bed for a long time, you brat. I will not tolerate you insulting my roommate like that. She kicked him off the wall and hopped back down to Izuku's side. He looked at her, thankful. She smiled and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, causing 1A to gasp. Rumi. Oh please. You all already knew this would happen. And no spilling, I'll know. They just nodded and sat down. The second round started, and Izuku was against Tokoyami. The 2 students walked down to the concrete fighting area. Tokoyami. A demon made of darkness against a demon embraced by light. May the best man win, Midoriya. Izuku nodded as Midnight began the match. Izuku, while mute, never lost his love for analyzing quirks, and he already knew Dark Shadow's only weakness, light. He dug into his skin, sprayed blood out towards and onto Dark Shadow, which Tokoyami sent towards him. He ignited the blood, causing the shadow monster to shrink. Izuku got in close and shoved Tokoyami out of the ring. Izuku helped him up, and they both nodded at each other before walking back. Izuku continued to watch, until his next match came up, against Bakugo. They both stood up, looked at each other, nodded, and walked off. When they made it down, they nodded again, confirming an unsaid plan, one that would be remembered for the rest of their years. Midnight began the match, and the two boys just walked to the center. The crowd looked confused, as they expected a battle, not what appeared to be a contest of will. At least, that's what they hoped it was, but those hopes were quickly shattered as the two teens struck combative poses, with their fists in the center. Before anyone could make any theories, their hands started going up and down. Bakugo, shoot! The hand stopped, Izuku with a fist, and Bakugo with a flat hand. Bakugo. Ha, paper beats rock. Izuku nodded, turned around, and walked off the platform, forfeiting the match. Crowd yelling, "What?" Izuku walked back to the stands with Bakugo, finding Rumi laughing as they came back. She walked over and hugged Izuku. Rumi. Oh my god, that was amazing, a great plan. Bakugo. We've been preparing for that moment since we first watched the festival when we were 6. The rock, paper, scissors match that all of Japan will remember for years. He and Izuku shared a fist bump, but Bakugo had to go back to fight Todoroki. A while later, Izuku was on the third-place podium instead of Ada, who had to leave because of family reasons. All Might appeared to hand out the medals. He walked over to Izuku, putting the third-place medal around his neck. He was given a microphone by midnight, undoubtedly to ask about his throne match. A.M. Young Midoriya, may I ask why you and Bakugo didn't fight in the semi-finals? Izuku nodded, and wrote his answer into the podium. A.M. You two were planning that since you were 6, huh? Oh, and your MOM wouldn't want to see you two hurt each other. What wholesome and noble reasons, young Midoriya. Izuku nodded as All Might moved on. He looked to the sky, wondering, would she be proud of him? He remembered back to her last words she ever said to him, the words of a woman, dying for her child. Inko. Remember, Izuku. I will always love you, no matter what. Coughs up blood. Become a great hero, be true to yourself, get a beautiful wife, or a handsome husband, I don't care, as long as you're happy. Don't fight with Katsuki, he's a good kid, even if he's a little hot-headed. Coughing followed by heavy breathing. Live a good life, Izuku. Goodbye, I love you. He decided she would be. He was getting closer to being a hero. He and Bakugo were the best of friends, and she would most likely approve of Rumi, despite the age difference. Visiting parents. After the sports festival, Izuku and Rumi went back to the apartment. She noticed he was spaced out the whole drive, so once they sat down, she asked him about it. Rumi. Hey, Izuku. What's up? You were pretty quiet in the car, more than usual, that is. He frowned a little and pulled out his phone. Izuku was thinking of Mom. I think she'd be proud of me. I'm so close to being a hero, and I've got a beautiful girlfriend. Rumi smiled and hugged him. Rumi. I'm sure she is, Aizu. Izuku, ah. She pulled back. Rumi. What is it? Izuku, could we visit her grave? Rumi. Sure we could. Let's go. They left and got back in the car. After an hour of driving, they came upon a cemetery and parked. Izuku got out and walked in, the loose sleeves of the jacket he was wearing flowing with the wind. Rumi followed him all the way towards the back where he stopped and kneeled next to a gravestone marked Inko Midoriya. Izuku. She could tell that even if he couldn't speak, he was trying to use his sounds to say Mom. He kept grumbling and making noise for a bit, then he burst into tears. Rumi ran over and hugged him, trying to calm him, which worked a little. After he quieted down, she started talking. Rumi. Hey, Mrs. Midoriya. You might know me from TV, but I'm Rumi Yusujiyama, Izuku's girlfriend, and the pro hero Mirko. I hope you're proud of him, he misses you a lot, and I know you loved him, but Hisashi is a 6 Novahitch, and he's part of a new group called the League of Villains. Me, Izuku, and that Bakugo kid will take him down, I swear. Just then, clapping could be heard from behind them. Hisashi. Wonderful, truly beautiful. Though that last part, yeah. I wouldn't lie to a dead person, pretty disrespectful if you asked me. Rumi. What do you want, you bastard? Hisashi. Not a fight, I'll say that. Izuku could beat me alone, so could you. I'm not foolish enough to try anything. Just wandered over here to mourn, that's all, though it seems I'll have to clean demon tears off the STO. Out of nowhere a branch from a nearby tree broke off and flew into his face. A gust of wind pushed through the area along with it, and all three of them swore they heard a feminine voice within it. Wind, untouched grand bastard. The same branch then lifted off of the ground and flew into the back of his head. Another, more gentle yet furious voice could be heard. Wind, can't Belle once love Omion like you? Rumi looked behind the man and swore she could see two ghosts. One was a woman in her late 20s wearing a black, sleeveless bodysuit and a white cape, clearly a hero. The other was a smaller woman in her mid-30s with her green hair up in a bun and an angry look on her face. They looked at her and smiled before drifting away. Rumi and Izuku left before Hisashi could wake up. They got in the car when Rumi got a text and her expression soured. Izuku. Ah? Rumi. Not only are we meeting your mom's ghost apparently. You're meeting my dad, he heard about you from Ryuko, and wants to meet you. Apparently he has a surprise for me too. Izuku took out his phone. Izuku, can't be too bad. Right? Rumi chuckled. Rumi. We'll see Izu. We'll see. She started the car and pulled out, leaving the cemetery. It took 2 hours to get to Rumi's dad's house. He lived outside the city and an hour away from her apartment, the complete opposite direction of the cemetery. They pulled up, and Rumi spied an unfamiliar car in the driveway. They got out and walked up to the door. Izuku rang the doorbell, and her father answered, a frown on his face. RD. Hi, you must be Midoriya. I've heard a lot about you. Nice job in the festival. Don't worry, I haven't told anyone. I'm Oroboku Yusujiyama. Just call me oh yeah, sorry. Just write either Oroboku or Dad, either one. Rumi. Alright Dad, what's with the frown? Ordinarily you'd be all over us. Does it have something to do with the car? Oroboku nodded. Oroboku. It's your mother's. I don't know why she's here, but there's clearly something she can get out of this. I just haven't figured it out yet. We both know it's not a good relationship with her family she's looking for. Rumi's face darkened and her eyes threatened tears. Izuku grabbed her hand, which managed to calm her a little. Rumi. After all this time, she decides to come back now? After we're all happy? He nodded. Oroboku. Yes, but remember. Any outbursts means she wins. Izuku, I assume you know what happened? Izuku nodded. Oroboku. Good, please keep yourselves calm, I'm already barely able to. They nodded and walked inside. It was a nice house, big, spacious, family pictures of just Rumi and her dad. They walked into the living room and sat down as a woman walked in. She barely looked like Rumi, the only things that they shared were white hair, and even then they were different shades. RM. Welcome back, oh this must be the boyfriend, how cute. The layer of fake excitement was so thick Izuku swore he was physically pushed back by her words. Izuku. Oroboku. Why are you here, Melora? Melora. To spend some time with my family, of course. The smile she gave off was fake, everyone knew it. Izuku even saw her lips quivering in discomfort from it. Rumi. Bullshit. That's bull and you know it. Just tell us what you want so we can all go back to being happy strangers again, Melora. That normally would have surprised Izuku, Rumi using her mom's name, but knowing what he did, he wasn't even fazed. Melora's smile dropped, knowing her act was see-through. Melora. Fine, you damn brat. I need money, my husband just left me, and took everything. Even our kid went with him, and I've already gone through my savings. Rumi. Why do you care about the kid? Not like you gave a damn about me. Melora. Because unlike yours, that kid's quirk is powerful, he's guaranteed to become a hero and make lots of money. Izuku. Growling. Ah rah. Melora. If he's just going to make animal noises, shut him up already. Oroboku. No. I won't. I won't stop him from attempting to speak his mind. Melora. Actually. Let me take him. I've seen his quirk. It's powerful and he's already in hero school. I'll get his animalistic ass out of your hair. Rumi had to pin his arms down as he attempted to splatter her with blood. Rumi. Izuku, stop. Yes, we all hate her bit. If you hurt her, you'll get expelled. Melora. I'll even forget about reporting you two to the Hero Commission. Everyone stopped, turning to look at the woman. Rumi stood up, walked over to her, bent down, and looked her in the eyes, intense red meeting, now terrified brown. Rumi, menacingly quiet. I just stopped Izuku from killing you here and now. Then you think it is wise to threaten both of us? My patience had already grown thin, and it is dangerously close to snapping. I do not care about my hero ranking, you know that. You say anything to them, and I will hunt you down. I will give you to Izuku, and then feed what's left to sharks. Am I clear, Melora? Now get out of my dad's house, you horrible excuse of a human being. Melora ran out of the house and to her car, driving away as fast as possible. Boku. I apologize. She wouldn't leave. Izuku pulled out his phone. Izuku, it's okay, Dad. At least we got to threaten her before she said anything to the commission. Boku. Heh, I guess you're right. Now who's hungry? INR. You know it. They ate as a family that evening. Izuku and Rumi said bye to Boku and went back to the apartment. Hero names and internships. Aizawa walked into the classroom, fresh pot of scalding hot coffee in hand, still mentally preparing for having to deal with 1A. The class quieted down as he walked to the podium. Aizawa. 5 seconds, you're all getting better. Now, as many of you probably know, every year after the sports festival, heroes from across the country put in requests for interns from the hero courses. He picked up the remote and turned in the projector, presenting names and numbers. Aizawa. Those of you who were scouted are up here, but not all of you were. But don't fret, these internships are mandatory, so you will be given a list of 40 hero agencies willing to take random interns. Izuku was scanning the board, but it turned out that he wasn't scouted, at all. Not even Aizawa's outbursts brought any guilt-ridden requests. Izuku. Aizawa. Midoriya, don't look so down. You're not up here because you were actually scouted, granted it was only one person, so we automatically put you with them. Izuku looked up excitedly. Izuku. Aizawa. It's a surprise. They're picking you up themselves when we leave on Monday. We worked with Bakugo, Ajiri, and Mirko on this. I'm sure you'll love it. Aizawa. Now, moving on. For these internships you'll all need your hero names. As my name suggests, I'm terrible at names, and they can easily stick. So be sure they're good or else. Midnight bursted through the door. Midnight. You'll have help to pay later. I'll be judging your names and seeing if they're fit for use. If not, you'll have to make a new one up and try again. Now come get a whiteboard and be ready to present. Aizawa chugged the coffee pot and sat down, sliding into his sleeping bag. Aizawa. I'll be here if you need anything, Kuyama. She nodded to him and passed out the whiteboards. Tsu was the first to go up, using the name Froppy, which was quickly accepted by Midnight. After her, the rest of the class went up one by one. Izuku was the last person to go. He wrote his name idea on his whiteboard, stood up, and walked to the front of the room to present it. Ichi placed the board on the podium facing the class. Izuku. Izuku, Demon of Light Deku. Midnight. I love it, the title's amazing, Midoriya. He smiled and sat back down. Midnight then nudged Aizawa awake and left the room. The sleepy man got out of his sleeping bag and stood at the podium. Aizawa. Alright, now that that's out of the way, we can get you all your lists. Mike will be here shortly with your lists, though please don't be discouraged by the sizes, you all have room to grow, you will get better. After a few minutes, President Mike walked in pushing a cart full of binders and stapled packets. He called the students up one by one. Izuku did feel a little left out, but he remembered his was a surprise, and one he'd like apparently. At lunch he, Bakugo, and Tsu were sitting together. Izuku pulled his phone out. Izuku, who are you guys going with? Bakugo. The Great Explosion Murder God, Dynamite is going to be interning with the number 4 hero Best Genist. Tsu. I'm going with a water-based hero named Selkie. Karo. BNT. No, we won't tell you who you're going with, Deku/Midoriya. Izuku crossed his arms, pouted, and looked away from them. Izuku. Humph. Monday. The class were all in the train station, waiting for the train, but also watching for whoever was picking Izuku up. After a while, an elderly man in a yellow and white hero suit came in and walked over to the class. Are Izuku Midoriya and Mina Ishido here? The two students walked over to the man. My hero name is Gran Torino. I'm Ms. Ishido's internship teacher, and the man who's taking you to yours, Midoriya. From what I heard from Mirko, you're the grandson of an old friend of mine. Izuku. Torino. Come on, I'll show you. They left the station and got into his car. Once they were in, Torino started driving and passed a small box back to Izuku. Torino. This is something she wanted one of her kids to get to remember her, but since you're her only living relative, it's yours. Izuku opened the box and saw a familiar piece of fabric. He'd seen it in pictures his mom used to have, of her and her mom. He pulled it out of the box, revealing a white cape, connected with yellow beads. Underneath it laid a red cloth, held together with a gold-colored clasp with a wing-like design. He kept going through the box, finding the rest of his grandmother's hero costume within it. Torino. Keep it safe, Midoriya. I trust you to do that. Now sit tight, you'll like where we're going. Izuku. Ishido saw as tears welled up in his eyes as he smiled. Ishido. He's really thankful for it. Torino. You're welcome, kid. Izuku stayed quiet throughout the ride, silently shifting through the costume before coming across a picture. One of his grandma, Nana Shimura, a little girl with green hair who was most likely his mother, and an older boy with black hair. He put it back in the small pocket by the chest, just big enough for the picture. She clearly wanted her family to be close to her, but the pocket nearly invisible, meaning it was probably a secret to even Torino. After an hour, Torino stopped the car outside a hero agency, one that had been kept in operation even after its hero died. Izuku looked at the name, Paragon Hero Agency. He looked up the hero name, but couldn't find anything on them. Torino got out of the car and Izuku put the hero costume back in the box and followed him. Torino. I saw you look Paragon up. You won't find anything, she was never that popular, always staying under the radar. For reasons I'm about to tell you. Everyone involved already knows I'm about to tell you, so don't worry, but first, welcome to Nana Shimura's Hero Agency, kid. As they walked inside, Izuku saw that even though the lights were on, the agency hadn't been used in decades. Nearly everything but the electrical system was outdated. He walked over to the front desk and saw 3 letters, one addressed to his mother Inko, one addressed to a man named Kotaru, and finally, one addressed to a grandchild. He picked up and read the one to his mother. Nana, dear Inko. My beautiful baby girl, I know you might hate me for what I did, and I understand if you do, I probably deserve it. I can't tell you why I did what I did, but a friend of mine, a hero by the name Gran Torino, can. I needed to protect you and your brother. I'm sorry I had to give you two up. I just couldn't live with myself if you two were in danger. Just know, I never stopped loving you with all my heart. Love, Mom. Izuku was tearing up at the letter. He put it in the box, as well as the Kotaru one, to hopefully give it to his kid if he had one. He opened the one addressed to a grandchild. Nana, dear my grandchild. If you're reading this, then my worst nightmares have come true and one or both of my children, your parent, are dead. You may not even know who I am and vice versa, but I'm sure you've grown into a fine young man/woman. I hope either Inko or Kotaru were good parents while they were alive. I don't know you, but know that I write this with all the love in my heart. Just know that Grandma Nana is proud of you, no matter what you are. With all my love, Granny Nana. Torino walked over as Izuku put the letter in his pocket rather than the box. Torino. She was a fine woman, and an even better friend. Now you'll be here, training by yourself and learning from the records kept here how to run an agency. I'll stop in every day to check on you. Now sit down. Izuku did as he was told as Torino pulled up a chair for himself. Torino. It's time you learned about One for All. Hero killer. Izuku was in the agency's training room. It had been a few days since the internship started. He learned a lot about running an agency, but that wasn't as important to him as what else he learned. The letters at the front desk hadn't been the only ones Nana left behind. Over the last few days he had been continuously finding letters each addressed to one of three people, his mother, Kotaru, or a grandchild. He had also learned from Gran Torino that he had told Rumi of OFA. Was it the smartest decision? Not really. But Gran Torino knew Izuku would need someone to talk to about it besides him, All Might, and Ishido. Izuku had looked up the address of the agency and found it was on the outskirts of Hosu, where Ito was with Manuel. Izuku was kicking a training dummy when he heard Gran Torino and Ishido walk in. Izuku, Torino. Hey, a kid! We're about to do some patrolling here in Hosu, wanna join us? Izuku quickly nodded but held up his finger, telling them to wait as he ran over with his phone. Izuku, can I test out a new move I've been trying? I call it exploding blood bullets. Ishido. Oh, sounds cool, Midori. Torino. Sure, why not? I'll stand over there, use it on me. Izuku nodded. They both walked over, across from each other. Izuku bit his tongue, filling his mouth with blood and letting it trickle down his throat, then flexed his enhanced muscles, sending the blood flying in a concentrated blob towards Gran Torino. He then ignited it, and the elderly hero barely dodged. Torino. Holy, what speed! That's great, kid, keep working on that until you can perfect it. Now let's go patrol, put your hero costume on. Izuku nodded and ran towards the room he was using. As he was changing, his eyes gravitated towards the box with Nana's costume in it. He wouldn't wear it. Not only was it tailored to his grandmother's frame, not his, but he liked looser clothing, but something within still called out to him. He walked over to it and opened it up. He dug through before coming upon two pieces, the beautiful, clean, white cape and the elegant red waistcloth. He put the cape back, deciding he wasn't fit to wear it until another day, and put the red cloth around his waist. He clipped it on, the golden wing design on the clasp and the red of the cloth blending perfectly with his own costume, almost as if he was meant to wear it. When he walked out, Gran Torino immediately spied the cloth, smiled, and said nothing, clearly feeling the same thing Izuku felt. And they headed out to patrol. They were walking down the road, an hour into the patrol, when they heard explosions and screams. Izuku also heard another sound, that of wings flapping, too big for a bird, but way too small to be Ryukyu. He looked up and his eyes widened, a Nomu, barreling straight for them. He couldn't move fast enough to do anything, so instead he bit his tongue, and fired a blood bullet. The pink flames hit the Nomu in the eyes, causing it to fly out of control. Torino. Nice shot, we have to take care of this. I give you kids my full permission to use your quirks to fight these things, any villains you come across, and save whoever you can. Izuku suddenly heard a noise, farther away but still relatively close, the sound of metal on flesh, a teenage boy yelling, and a man monologuing. Izuku. Torino. What? Don't tell me you need to do something. Ugh, fine, but be safe. Nana, rise from the dead and kill me if you die. Izuku nodded and ran towards the sound. He started hopping from wall to wall, much like Rumi would. He rounded a corner, seeing the man known as Stain standing over a seemingly paralyzed Ida. Izuku. A swift kick to the side knocked Stain away from Ida, though he was able to bring up one of his swords to try and defend, cutting Izuku's foot off at the ankle. Izuku regenerated his foot as Stain recovered. Stain. Another worthless fake. Here to end my cleansing. Izuku. Stain. Oh, I recognize you. You're the demon kid from the sports festival. I like you, your motives are true, you cannot speak, but you're horrible at hiding the truth. Leave and you will be spared. Ida. You're already done for if you don't leave. He can paralyze you with his sword somehow. Go, this is my responsibility. Izuku. Stain. Suit yourself. Prepare to die. Stain brought his sword up to his mouth, and started to lick Izuku's blood. Izuku put Ida's claim and Stain's actions together, and ignited the blood before Stain could swallow any of it, causing his sword and his mouth to burst into flames, illuminating the dark alley in pink light. Izuku rushed over, kicked Stain in the side, breaking a few ribs and cracking others. As Stain hit the wall, Izuku walked over and poured blood all over him, ensuring he wouldn't move. He then messaged Gran Torino. Izuku took down Stain picture of unconscious Stain. Torino, what? Where are you? Izuku, map screenshot wherever this is. After a few minutes, Torino and a few other pros arrived. Stain was tied up by a light pole, Native was talking to Izuku, and Ida was sulking about how dumb he was. Ida and Native were rushed to the hospital for treatment, while the police chief showed up to talk to Izuku directly. PC. So, young man, I've been informed that you took down Stain? Izuku looked terrified, sure he was on the hero's side here, but he knew of detectives who could spin the situation into a brutal demon-type attack. Izuku. Ra? The chief looked at the boy confused. He knew he couldn't talk, but why was he scared? Just the Rumi landed next to them. Rumi. Back off, he doesn't like cops. PC. Ms. Mirko. Would you tell why? Rumi. Isn't it obvious? He's a demon type, you guys arrest them on sight every day. Hell, well, all know the only reason they aren't shot in the streets is because they'd regenerate. And you expect that fear to just disappear? PC. I apologize, I honestly didn't know. I'm new, only held this position a few months. I've been focused on trying to end this demon discrimination, but I'm one man. It's happening, but very slowly. Rumi just sighed. Rumi. Alright, but let me talk to him, okay? The chief just nodded and she walked over to him, then pulled him into the alley. As soon as they were out of eyesight, she started talking. Rumi. I know this is stupid, but are you okay, Aiza? Not hurt, are you? Izuku shook his head. He wasn't hurt. She hugged him tightly. Rumi. Oh, thank God. Now, what happened? Other than Stain getting his ass handed to him by a mute high schooler. Izuku giggled and pulled out his phone, texting her the story so she could give it to the chief. Rumi. Good job, babe. A deed like this deserves a reward, don't you think? He looked at her confused, then she kissed him before whispering into his ear. Rumi, whispering. My Quirk's acting up. I'm coming over tonight, and you're not sleeping. Izuku quickly nodded, face redder than Endeavor's fire. She chuckled and walked away, leaving Izuku to rush back to the agency after texting Gran Torino not to come over. First day back. Izuku was standing at the station with Ishido and Gran Torino. He had his suitcase in one hand and his hero costume case in the other. Nana's costume had been safely taken back to the apartment by Rumi. Now he and Ishido were waiting for the train to get to UA. Torino. Good luck, both of you. Ishido, Toshinori made the right call picking you, keep improving. Midoriya, keep Nana's costume safe like you promised, and please do wear the cape. After taking down a dangerous person like Stain, you definitely deserve it. I think she'd be proud of you, kid. The train pulled up to them and stopped. Torino. If you need anything else, don't be afraid to call. Take care. Ayane. You got it. They quickly boarded the train and sat down. Izuku pulled out his phone and texted Rumi. Izuku, hey Rumi? Rumi, yeah Aizu? Izuku, could you bring Grandma's cape to UA? Torino said I deserve to wear it after beating Stain and saving people. Rumi, I'll see you there. Love you? Izuku, love you too, Rumi. He put his phone away as he felt Ishido's gaze on him. Izuku. Ishido. If you don't mind me asking, how did you and Mirko meet? Izuku pulled his phone back out. Izuku, I was homeless for a while and I was walking through town. I had a small commotion about a top pro and saw her when I went. We locked eyes and I ran, because I didn't want to be arrested. But she followed me. I told her about my situation as a homeless demon type, and she took me in. As Ishido finished reading, she hugged the boy. When she let go, they kept talking for a little bit. After an hour, the train stopped, and they got off. They walked towards UA and met Rumi at the gate. Rumi. Hey Aizu. Here's her cape. Your costume will look amazing with it, I'm sure. And I wanted to thank you again for helping me with my problem the other day. Ashido looked on as Izuku's face tinted red. Izuku. Rumi chuckled. Rumi. I know. Now get in there. I'd bet Eraserhead's gonna make you fight or something. Go kick ass. They shared a quick kiss. Izuku gave her his suitcase to take home. Both students went inside. As they walked into the classroom, they noticed that the class was giving them weird looks. Izuku. Ah? Suddenly Tsu and Bakugo leapt up and ran over to him. Bakugo. You crazy nerd, why'd you fight the hero killer alone? Tsu. Yeah. Karo, you had us all worried. Ashido. He's fine, look at him. He's never been better, besides he already got a talking to from Mirko, and a little more. Izuku immediately smacked her on the head to shut her up, but it was too late. A certain purple ball-haired student had heard and ran at him. Mineta. How was it? How did it feel? Did she crush your head, Batu? Izuku, thoroughly disgusted, kicked Mineta across the room. Bakugo patted his shoulder. Bakugo. Good job. Then an annoyed voice was heard coming from the door. Aizawa. As bored as I am, I don't wish to listen to your guys' hex lives. Shut up and sit down. Izuku panicked. Aizawa had heard, and Izuku knew how no-nonsense the man was. If he felt that he and Rumi weren't good at all, both their careers would be over. He did as he was told and sat at his desk, cape in hand, gripping to it for hope. Aizawa looked at Izuku, noticing he was nervous. Aizawa. No, I won't report you too, but please get better at hiding it. Nizu already suspects something. Now these internships were meant to help you all learn and get better, and that has happened, some more than others. On that note, you will all be competing in a few races. You will race to a fake civilian somewhere within Ground Gamma. All Might, take it from here. Aizawa slipped into his sleeping bag and crawled into a corner, as All Might made his way into the room. As the giant man entered, Izuku hid the cape, wanting it to be a surprise. Alright, go put on your costumes and meet me at Ground Gamma. I'm excited to see your improvement. All Might stopped Izuku before he could leave. Whispering. I'm sure Nana would be proud, young Midoriya. Izuku. Ah. All Might let go of his shoulder and let him leave. A few minutes later, All Might was standing in front of the class, waiting for Izuku. Does anyone know where young Midoriya is? Ashido. He has little extra on his costume. He should be here any minute now. Just then someone could be heard running down the dark hallway towards them. All Might's eyes widened as he watched Izuku jump through the doorway, his master's waistcloth and cape flowing through the air. Izuku. And now that young Midoriya is here, we can begin now. We will split you into groups of 5. Come draw lots. Izuku was put into a group with Ida, Siro, Ojiro, and Ashido. All Might jumped to a random area within Ground Gamma and set off a distress signal, marking the start. Izuku took off faster than everyone else. Ashido caught up to him and almost passed him, but he spat a blood bullet at her. She dissolved the blood, but the distraction was enough to slow her down and cause her to hit a pipe. Izuku made it to All Might first, and the man announced his victory. Before anyone else made it, All Might spoke up. The cape and cloth look good on your costume, young Midoriya. Izuku just nodded and waited for his classmates. Once the others arrived, they went back to the others. Hagakure. What was the move you used on Mina, Midoriya? Ashido. He calls it exploding blood bullets. From what I know, he bites his tongue, lets the blood flow down his throat, and basically manually hiccups to force it out. Hagakure. Wow, amazing. The rest of the day went by rather fast. Izuku walked into the apartment, set his stuff down, and walked into the living room. He laid his head on Rumi's lap, which woke her up from a nap. Rumi. Oh, hey Aizu. How was it? Izuku. Rumi. Good, huh? Well, how about to celebrate a good first day back, we go out? Izuku nodded. They went out to dinner later that night. Apparently Rumi had gotten a reservation to a nice restaurant. When they got seated, they ordered some drinks. A feminine voice was heard. Yayorozu. Midoriya? Why are you here? Rumi. You're Yayorozu, right? We're on a date tonight. Why are you here? Yaoyorozu. Oh, how lovely. I hope you two have fun. I'm here for dinner with my family. Just then a man and a woman walked up behind Yaoyorozu, clearly her parents, and very recognizable. The man was the owner of the Yaoyorozu Corporation, Kazuma Yaoyorozu. The woman was his wife, a famous model named Fubuki Yaoyorozu. Kazuma. Oh, you're that Midoriya kid, nice to meet you. Izuku. Ah. Fubuki. We're Momo's parents. Oh, Mirko, how are you? Rumi. I'm doing great. Izuku could tell Rumi was a little annoyed at the interruption of their date, so Izuku subtly showed his phone screen to Momo. Izuku, Rumi's getting irritated, could you guys move along? Momo. Mother, father, let's go, I'm getting hungry. They nodded and bid farewell to the couple. The rest of the night went smoothly and Rumi and Izuku went to sleep that night, satisfied by the date. Christmas special. Izuku opened his eyes to a dark room. He looked around and found his phone, turning it on to check the time. As he was doing that, the date caught his eye. He almost forgot it was Christmas. He jumped out of bed, got dressed, and ran down to the common space of the dorms. Once he was down, he sat next to Tsu and Bakugo to eat the breakfast Sato was making. Izuku picked out a generous helping of pancakes, bacon, and breakfast sausages. Even Aizawa joined in on the breakfast. After they were done eating, Togata showed up with Eri in a Santa suit. They included the small girl in their mystery gift exchange. Siro attached his tape to each present, and gave each end to a different person. When Izuku pulled his, he got a 13-figure Uraraka bot. After thanking each other for the gifts, they left the dorms to go see family, but Bakugo dragged Izuku off towards his house. Izuku tried to text Rumi, but she wouldn't answer. The small smirk on Bakugo's face told him it was a surprise. They reached the Bakugo household within the hour and Natsuki answered the door to let them in. She led Izuku and Katsuki into the living room and sat them down. She came back with a couple presents and gave one to each of them. Izuku opened his and got a custom-made zip-up sweatshirt with enlarged sleeves. After getting his gift, Masaru led him up to a guest room, shoved him in, and closed the door, with a smirk on his face. When Izuku turned the light on, something on the bed caught his eye. A lumpy present was laid out and seemed to be moving. Before he could open it, he heard the front door open and close, as well as the car leaving. He shrugged it off and pulled on the wrapping paper, revealing a brown thigh. Now suspecting what, or rather who, was underneath, he kept going until a fully unwrapped Rumi remained on the bed, with a Christmas-themed version of her hero suit on and a bow on one of her ears. Rumi. I'm your present, Aizu. Izuku. Ah. He hugged her tightly and laughed a little. She gave him a kiss and whispered into his ear. Rumi, whispering. Now how about you finish unwrapping me and play with your present, Hours later the Bakugos came home, and it was quiet. They walked up to the guest room and peeked in. It was a mess, though it looked like they tried to clean up. The dresser was on the floor, the bed was in a completely different corner, and the lamp was just gone. They could even swear there were scorch marks on the floor. They spied the couple together on the bed, in deep sleep, huge smiles on their faces. They closed the door, and went to their own rooms for the night. When the Bakugos woke up, they smelled an amazing smell and they walked downstairs to a full breakfast and a note from Izuku. Izuku, thank you for lending us the room. Enjoy the breakfast I made. The Bakugos all sat down and ate the best breakfast they'd ever had. One last Christmas present. Final exams. A week had passed since the internships ended, and now the class was standing in front of Aizawa outside the training grounds, ready for the practical portion of their final exams. Aizawa. Before we start, do any of you know what you're going to be doing? Ashido bounced up and down, hand waving through the air. Aizawa. Ashido, go ahead. Ashido. Kendo said we'd be fighting robots like in the entrance exams. Ordinarily, you'd be correct, Mississippi Ashido. The owner of the new voice crawled his way out of Aizawa's capture tool, revealing Nizu himself. Nizu. Behold, it's me, the principal now. Like I said, usually you would fight robots, but that would be inefficient considering this class experience, so instead you'll be fighting us, the staff of UA. When he ended, the other faculty members walked out, revealing themselves. Aizawa. Now you all may be thinking this is unfair, right? Normally I'd say life itself is unfair, but this would be overboard even for me. Nizu. Which is why Mississippi Hatsum from the support course made us these nifty little weights that force us to carry around half our body weight carrying on. You will be split into teams of 2, your partners having been chosen for specific reasons. Now for the teams and opponents. Nizu listed off the names, but Izuku noticed he wasn't with Bakugo or Tsu. Eventually the small rodent made it to the last team. Nizu. And finally, Mina Ishido and Izuku Midoriya versus me. The booming voice of All Might could be heard as he landed between the students and other teachers. You two shall battle me for your final exam. After that, Nizu ordered the first 4 pairs to their areas and let the others strategize or watch. Izuku and Ishido chose to strategize, though it was more like Izuku dragged her to a waiting room. He sat down across from her, and they began. Ishido. So, Midori, any ideas? Izuku took out his phone to write. Izuku. Other than distracting him, then none. While yes, I can regenerate almost instantly, there's no way I'm faster than him. Same speed maybe, but not faster. Ishido. I agree. Oh, maybe if I supercharged my acid making with OFA, you can push me real fast, and our combined speed can rush past him. Izuku. That might work. I can also constantly leak blood so he doesn't want to come close. We will have to go around cause he might go for a more direct approach. Ishido stood up and held up her hand, waiting for a high five which Izuku quickly reciprocated. Half an hour later they were called down to the city training ground. Once they reached it, Ishido charged OFA to her max percentage and started excreting acid from her feet. Izuku dragged his nails through his arms and focused on not regenerating. The buzzer went off, and so did they. Instead of heading straight, Izuku pushed Ishido 3 streets to the side before heading down. They then heard a giant crash as an airwave destroyed the main street that they would have been on if they went straight, before hearing All Might land and yell in confusion. Yelling. Where did you go, heroes? Running away? Izuku went faster so they could get out of range before Ishido could yell back a remark that would get them caught. Though that wouldn't matter as All Might started tracking Izuku's blood trail. He could hear the giant man coming because of his footsteps and the sound of him spitting to get the boy's blood off his face, so he ignited his blood and let his arms regenerate. Izuku ah! He pushed his legs harder, but just before they crossed the exit, All Might appeared, so Izuku pulled out something not even Ishido knew he came up with. He quickly wiped some leftover blood on her back, grabbed her tightly, fell backwards so she was facing up, let go, and ignited it, the force of the flame sending the girl upwards over the symbol of peace and through the exit. Then President Mick's voice came over the speakers. PM. Midoriya and Ishido claim victory over All Might. With that, Izuku and All Might walked around the corner to Ishido, and All Might deflated. Phew, that was a workout with these weights on you too. Good job, especially you young Midoriya with that booster thing you did, you got a name for it? Izuku thought for a moment before pulling his phone out, deciding to pay one last bit of homage to his grandmother. Izuku, Shimura's flight. I like it, though her quirk was float, not fly. Izuku, and the move is a boost, not flying either. Touché. Ishido. Whatever it was amazing, it felt so cool to do that, I wish I could actually float. They all chuckled before heading to where they needed to be. Later, Izuku walked into the apartment to see Rumi flying into him. When they stood up, Izuku looked past her to see another hero, the number 3 hero Hawks, a slightly annoyed look on his face. Rumi. Oh hey Aizu. Welcome back. I can talk later, but I need to take care of KFC over there. Izuku giggled at the nickname. Hawks. Who's the kid? Your little brother or something, Bugs? Rumi. He's my roommate, thank you very much, and a good friend too. Suddenly Izuku felt a feather scratch his cheek and returned to Hawks. Izuku put his hand on Rumi's shoulder before she could get mad, looked her in the eyes, and she nodded, knowing his plan. He ignited the small amount of blood Hawks took with the feather. Rumi. And that's why you don't mess with Aizu. She walked over and put him out with a blanket she picked up. The fire didn't reach his body, but it did burn a few feathers. Hawks. Now I recognize you, you're the UA demon. He said demon with such venom that it seemed like they had personally killed his mother in front of him. Rumi bent down and looked in Hawk's eyes similarly to how she did with her mother, a look Izuku affectionately named Murder Rabbit. Rumi, quiet. I hear you say demon like that towards Aizu one more time, and I swear you'll wish I let one of those Noma things be the one to tear you apart. Out of our apartment now! He got up quickly and ran out, leaving an angry Rumi and a saddened Izuku. Rumi snapped out of her anger when she heard something hit the floor and a soft sob come from Izuku. She hugged him and brought him over to the couch, letting him cry into her shoulder. Rumi. It's okay, he doesn't know you, he's just a quirkist asshole. You know there's plenty of people out there who won't care about your quirk. I love you, Izuku, and your friends care about you. Now show me how your exam went. He looked up at her, a small smile on his face as he wiped the final tears from his face. Izuku gave her a quick kiss and pulled out his phone, showing her a video of his exam. Rumi. Amazing job, Aizu. I didn't think you two would be able to win against All Might himself. Now let's get us some dinner. I'll order, so just relax. Izuku and them. They went to bed a while after they ate. Izuku was about to fall asleep when Rumi started having another nightmare. Rumi. Get away. No, please, he doesn't deserve this. Leave my Aizu alone. Hawk, stop. Can you let me go, please? No, Aizu. She opened her eyes, tears starting to flow down her face, but they didn't get far as Izuku wiped them away and hugged her. Rumi. Thanks, Aizu. Guess we're even for today, huh? She chuckled and they kissed briefly before settling back down for the night. Training camp. The class walked off of the bus. Arriving at the summer training camp, UA required their first-year heroes students to attend. This year the location was changed up to avoid villain attacks. Izuku sent Rumi a text saying he wouldn't be available for a few days as there wasn't any service. When he looked up, he saw two heroes he recognized, Mandalay and Pixie Bob of the Wild Wild Hussycats, striking their famous pose. Mandalay. Now that introductions are over with, welcome to your training camp. Well, you aren't there yet. See that building off in the distance? That's the camp. Everyone looked into the distance where she pointed, just barely able to see the WWP building. PB. We own this whole forest, so use your quirks as you see fit. Everyone except Izuku, Bakugo, Yayorozu, and Kirishima looked confused. Kirishima. Get back on the bus. Izuku grabbed Sue and Bakugo, and jumped towards the bus as Pixie Bob touched the ground to shift it. While the rest of the class was thrown off the cliff, Izuku and company landed on top of the bus. Pixie Bob. That's not fair. Aizawa. Neither is life. Midoriya, you three can come with us, you'd get through this challenge too easy. Izuku. Ah. He smiled and jumped down with Sue and Bakugo. They walked over to the car and got in, though the little boy they had with them glared at the three, Izuku especially. He shook it off as him being put off by his eyes or something. Not many had pink irises. They reached the camp after an hour and went inside to eat lunch. The students then met the other two Hussycats, Ragdoll and Tiger, as they walked into the room. Ragdoll. So why are these three already here? Aizawa. They avoided Pixie Bob's trap and would make the others get here too fast. Ragdoll. Okay then. Well, how do you guys think of a quick sparring session with us to pass some time? INBNT. Hell yes sure. Karo. Tiger. Let's see what you three are made of. They followed the Hussycats into their training room and got ready to fight. Izuku bit his tongue, readying a blood bullet. Bakugo took his shoes off, preparing a technique he made during his internship, and Sue crouched down, ready to leap. The buzzer started and so did the match. Izuku spat out his blood bullet, Bakugo shot off using explosions on his feet, and Sue leapt up to the ceiling. Bakugo, yelling kamikaze style. Izuku ignited the blood bullet as it passed by Tiger, knocking the man back. Bakugo slammed into Pixie Bob. Sue whipped Mandalay with her tongue and leapt at Ragdoll, kicking her. The Hussycats then struck back, Tiger sending an extended fist into Bakugo's back, slamming him into the ground hard enough to knock him out. Mandalay distracted Sue with telepathic messages while Ragdoll pinned her down, and Pixie Bob buried Izuku using the dirt covering the training room floor. Bakugo woke up after a while in his room. It was dark out, meaning it was night already. He had probably missed dinner, but that didn't matter. He was still digesting the big lunch he had. He rolled over in bed, preparing to get some actual rest when he recalled an odd interaction from his internship with Best Jeanist. Kamui Woods, an MT lady, had assisted in a bank robbery. The criminal had a demon-type quirk. KW. Another monster behind bars, just like they should be. Why they're allowed to live is something I'll never understand. NTL. I know, right? And they take attention away, making us get less pay. Bakugo looked at Best Jeanist, who only held a disgusted look on his face, not at the criminal, but towards the two heroes standing before them. Jeanist. Never turn out like them, Bakugo. Bakugo. I wouldn't, that's not how heroes act. Midoriya, the demon type in my class, is my best friend. Hell, he's like my cousin. Me, my parents, and our class would never turn out like them, you have my word. Best Jeanist placed a hand on his shoulder and nodded, claiming he believed in the young hero in training. Bakugo sighed, knowing that with every incident thrown at their class, the public would judge Izuku, and that everyone close to him would rise again and again to defend him, making sure the young demon would become an amazing hero. Attacked. Heat, fire, screams, that's all that Izuku could feel, see, and hear. What happened? This was supposed to be a safe place, somewhere villains couldn't find. Why did they attack the moment everyone was split up? Where's Koda, his hideout? Those were his thoughts as Izuku was standing in the clearing. Tiger and Mandalay were holding their own for now, but Pixie Bob was put cold and Ragdoll was in the forest somewhere. He ran over to Mandalay and started writing in the dirt. Izuku, know where Koda might be. Going to make sure he's okay. She quickly kicked out his message and sent him her own telepathically. Mandalay. Okay, make sure you both come back safe. He nodded and ran off towards the cliff Koda called his secret hideout. He had discovered the area a few days before he noticed Koda walk off without food, though he had the silent treatment when he put the food down, so he walked away. Thank God he remembered where it was. When it was in sight, he saw Koda in front of a large cloaked man with a mask. He noticed the man take the mask off and heard Koda yell in fear. Koda yelling, "Why, you're the demon who killed my parents!" That's why he didn't like Izuku. He knew he was a demon, like the one who took his parents. Izuku sped up, not about to let this guy kill a whole family. He noticed the man hold out his arm, muscle fibers emerging from his skin. Just as the man was about to slam his fist into Koda, Izuku pushed the boy out of the way, taking the blow and getting slammed hard into the ground. He even felt his spine break and a rib puncture his heart. Muscular. Oh, would you look at that? A hero brat saved your ass, not that it'll do any good. He won't be able to get up and stop me anymore. He walked over to Koda and raised his bloody fist into the air, but he heard something just before swinging down. Izuku Ra. He turned around to see Izuku standing there, the only evidence he was hurt being the blood on his shirt. Suddenly he felt an intense, burning pain on his right hand. He looked down to see his hand, engulfed in pink flames. Muscular. Oh, damn it! Regeneration, pink blood, flames, green hair, yeah, you're the kid the boss wants me to bring in. See all that fire, that's your old man's doing, and another partner of ours, but most of it is your father's fire. Izuku. Muscular. Oh right, you don't talk. Too bad that I can't kill you. But I'm sure you'll give me a good fight. He lunged towards Izuku, who raised his arms, but that did nothing as Muscular tore them off and threw Izuku over to Koda. What did surprise Muscular was how fast Izuku regenerated. Muscular. How? I've killed and eaten dozens and I can't regenerate anywhere near that fast. Izuku started writing in the stone next to Koda. Izuku, run, find Mr. Aizawa, get him over here, I'll hold him off. Koda. Why should I trust a demon? Izuku ignored the venom in the child's voice and wrote a response. Izuku, you don't have to, but I trust you to have enough common sense to leave while two demons are fighting. Koda looked at Izuku, nodded, and started running. Muscular wasn't about to let him leave so easily though. He lunged as fast as he could towards the boy, but as he was about to hit Kota, Izuku appeared and caught the punch, though clearly struggling to keep the fist from moving. Muscular looked into Izuku's pink eyes, only to see the determination of a hero. Izuku. Grr. Kota looked in amazement as Izuku saved him again, then continued running. Muscular. So be it, I'll just have to settle for beating you into paste and letting you regenerate for the boss. He punched Izuku with his other hand, sending him flying into a nearby rock, breaking it. Izuku stood up and ripped his arm open, preparing his favorite move dubbed Flaming Rubble. He ignited the blood on the broken rocks and started kicking them at Muscular, who shrugged them off, but Izuku saw his flames were making him regenerate slower. Izuku dug his nails into his chest, covering his hands in blood, ignited them, and charged at Muscular. Izuku Ra. Muscular was barely flinching at Izuku's rapid assault. Not even his anti-regenerative flames seemed to faze him. He seemed to have finally had enough when he grabbed Izuku's head and snapped his neck, temporarily knocking him out. When Izuku came to, he was being dragged by Muscular through a warp gate. He could see Bakugo, Tsu, and Ishido trying to get to him, but he was dragged the rest of the way through and the gate closed. Muscular bent down and picked him back up. Muscular. Nah, still nap time, little man. He broke Izuku's neck again, and it all went black. Not quite a rescue. Izuku awoke once again. He was bound to a chair with chains and had weighted cuffs that surrounded his hands. He could feel the last of his spinal cord stitching itself back together. He looked up to find he was in a bar, and the League were all staring at him. Muscular. Would you look at that? The little pipsqueak is awake. Hisashi. Still don't know why you didn't kill the damn thing. Shigaraki. Silence Burnout, we need him. Master believes he's special. Spinner. He shares Stain's beliefs about true heroes, he shouldn't be harmed. Toga. He looks so cute, can I cut him please? Shigaraki. Not right now. Twice. His eyes are freaky, / I love them. Compress. I wish I could have been the one to bring him in. It would have been fun to mess with his classmates. Dalby. Either way, this better have been worth it. I heard he has fire, I wonder how hot it is. Magna. His nails looked so sharp. He could slice right through my item. Kurogyri. Enough talk. Tamura Shigaraki, shall we begin? Shigaraki simply nodded and pulled his chair up to Izuku's to face him. Shigaraki. We've seen you fight, we've seen how you treat your comrades. But we've also seen how society treats you, like garbage. Here's my proposal, join us, and get back at this broken society. I promise your little friends won't be harmed as long as they stay out of our way. Izuku shook his head. Izuku ah. Shigaraki. Compress, get these restraints off our guest, he'll be more agreeable if we treat him as an equal. Compress. Why me? Why not have Twice do it? Dalby. Stop complaining and get it over with. Compress. Fine. The masked man walked over and removed Izuku's restraints. He jumped back as soon as he was done, expecting an attack, but nothing happened. Izuku rubbed and rolled his wrists, balling his hands up multiple times. Hisashi was the only one who noticed him wipe a small bead of something from his mouth, but he shrugged it off as drool. Suddenly the TV turned on, showing Aizawa in a suit with his hair up at a press conference. Shigaraki. Let's see what they have to say. At the press conference, Aizawa was sitting at the table that was set up, prepared for every statement that could be thrown his way. Aizawa. I take full responsibility for the incident and the injured students. I gave them my permission to use their quirks in self-defense. I should have been more alert during the night. A report raised their hand. Aizawa nodded towards them. R1. Sir, what about the missing student, Izuku Midoriya? Is it possible the demon betrayed you? This caused Aizawa to become very annoyed. Aizawa. He went off on his own to protect a child no one else knew where was. I don't know everything, but from what the child said, Izuku put the kid's life over his own, even taking multiple bone-shattering punches to protect him. So no, he didn't betray us. I'd known Midoriya for a few months, and as his teacher I can proudly say this, Izuku Midoriya is a true hero. He would never betray us for any reason. But I have a question for you. Was that question based on the fact he has a demon-type quirk? Because if it was, leave. I will not tolerate such a logical bias. He looked the reporter in the eyes and watched the man walk out of the room. Another raised their hand. R2. How is the search for the LOV coming, sir? Aizawa. Other heroes and the police are currently following multiple leads. Back at the bar, Shigaraki looked towards Izuku to see the boy smiling. Just as he was about to speak, a knock was heard. Mario's pizza delivery for Krusty Lips? The villains all looked at the door confused. Then the wall busted inwards, All Might flying in. There's nowhere to run now, villains. Kamui. Preemptive binding, lacquer chain prison. As Kamui Woods dove and he binded up the villains, and shot Izuku a hate-filled glare. Dabi was about to burn the wood, but a blur soon identified as Gran Torino knocked him out. Edge shot slipped through the gaps of the door. Edge shot. Apologies for the mess, the door was locked. He unlocked and opened it, revealing multiple, heavily armed police officers. He quickly incapacitated Kurogiri, cutting off their escape. Hisashi was about to start burning the wood himself, when something wet, warm, and red was spat at his face. He wiped the blood from his eyes, looked up, and saw a grinning Izuku. Hisashi. Damn you! It should have been you who died that day. Izuku. Humph. Just as the heroes were finishing up, Izuku suddenly felt sick, like something was forcing its way up his throat. When it made it to the top, Izuku's mouth became full of gray mud, which quickly enveloped him. When he could see again, he was on unfamiliar ground. He looked around to see a few collapsed buildings, both Best Jeanist and Empty Lady unconscious, the former having a hole the size of a plate in his torso. Finally, he gazed upward and saw the man who brought him there. In a black suit and a metal helmet, floating in the air, was All for One. Their eyes met, but that didn't last long as the symbol of evil was sent back by a kick, the foot covered in metal, resembling a rabbit's paw. Mirko was on the scene, and she wasn't happy. She looked down at the new arrival. First she looked relieved, then angry. Izuku looked behind him to see the rest of the league there. He leapt backwards towards Rumi. The both landed next to each other. Rumi. You good, Aizu? Izuku. Rumi. Good, cause we aren't getting out of here without a fight. You can take Bargain Bin Vader, I'll handle these guys. Izuku nodded and they split off from each other. All for One slowly floated back up. AFO. So they sent a child to fight me. How insulting. Let's see just how strong you are. Izuku spat a blood bullet at the man, but they got shot back by an air wave. Another was fired from the man's hand, this one stronger, strong enough to punch a hole right through Izuku's chest, which healed in just a second. Izuku charged at All for One, and managed to get close, but he used Rivet Stab to pin Izuku in the air. AFO. I'm curious, how would this work on your, what do they call it? Oh yeah, Blood Demon Art. Forced Quirk activation. Instantly Izuku felt his body start burning as the blood inside his body ignited. Since All for One did it, it obeyed his command. As he burned, he could feel himself losing consciousness. As Izuku was blacking out, he saw Rumi take down Muscular and move on. Just before everything went black, he saw a fast-moving, red, blue, and yellow object collide with All for One. Inner Demon. Izuku started to awaken as his insides regenerated from the burns. He opened his eyes to find All Might in his skinny form, standing over an unconscious All for One. He looked to the boy and nodded, he had won. Izuku looked to his left, seeing a conscious, but exhausted Rumi sitting a few feet away. Izuku. Ah? Rumi. Yeah, I won, who do you think I am? Izuku smiled, then chuckled, she followed suit. After a few minutes Kamui Woods and Hawks appeared, and Empty Lady woke up. Ambulances showed up to load up injured civilians and heroes, though All Might refused, opting to stay a while longer. Izuku was about to stand up, when he was pinned to a nearby wall by Hawk's feathers. Rumi. Hawks? What the he? Kamui Woods bound her arms and legs, and even attempted to cover her mouth, though he gave up after she kept moving. Kamui. We're here to do something that should have been done long ago. Hawks. Demons like him shouldn't be allowed to live. He summoned one of his bigger feathers, placing it to Izuku's throat, lining up to decapitate him. All Might saw what was happening and ran, or rather speed-walked, over. Am. Stop this, he is my student and my teacher's grandson, I will not allow this to go on. Empty Lady walked over. MTL. What are you gonna do? You're powerless now, everyone knows that. Am. I will ensure you get arrested for murder and accomplice to murder. If those don't stick, I will have your hero licenses revoked. MTL. We all know there's too many demon haters for that to happen. Hawks, slay this demon. Rumi started thrashing and the news copter that recorded the fight came back to get the new conflict. Rumi yelling. No, don't, I can't lose him, let Aiza go please. Tears started falling from her eyes. KNM. Aizu? Rumi yelling. Let him go, he doesn't deserve this, he didn't do anything to you, I'll kill you if you touch him. Hawks. You're rather attached to him, even for a roommate, is something else going on between you and this monster Mirko? Rumi looked to Izuku, who nodded, ready. Rumi yelling. Let him go, you touched my Aiza and I swear you won't live to see the day, not after I just got him back. Hawks. So that's why you wouldn't say yes, you were busy with this thing. Rumi. What? Jealous that the thing you despise is a better choice than you. Hawks. Woods. Kamui. Disgusting, dating a demon, you should die after him. In response to her claim, the wooden hero used his quirk to spear her leg, pinning her to the ground. The pain caused her to scream, tears running down her face. Ordinarily, she wouldn't be so reactive, but Izuku being in danger was causing her to be not so focused. During this whole ordeal, Izuku could be heard thrashing and grunting, but once he saw Rumi get hurt and hear her scream, he stopped. The others noticed his sudden silence, but then he started breathing hard, almost to the brink of hyperventilating. He grit his teeth, a soft yet menacing laugh escaping his mouth. Small flashes of the mistreatment he'd endured over the years, images the disgusted looks he'd received, all started flashing through his mind. The heroes watched in fear as Izuku grew in size, as black, crack-like marks appeared around his eyes, and as a long white horn grew from the right side of his forehead. The feathers holding him up couldn't hold his new size, so they dislodged, and he fell a few inches to the ground. The smile plastered on his face wasn't one of joy, but deranged, angry glee. He disappeared and punched Kamui Woods in the stomach, sending him flying and causing him to puke. He then whipped his head around to look at Empty Lady, who activated her quirk and tried to step on him. He simply jumped up and knocked her out with a kick to the head. When he landed, he slowly turned to look at Hawks, who had summoned a second large feather. Hawks was used to flying and fighting at high speeds, so he could keep up with Izuku, who charged at him. Hawks kept slicing him with feathers, which would be immediately burned. Finally, Hawks was able to get in a few solid hits, which were him cutting Izuku's limbs and head off. Hawks. Good riddance, no demon type can survive decapitation. He turned to walk away but heard Izuku still breathing. When he turned around, he saw something that scared him to his core. Hawks. How? Izuku's limbs and head were floating, held to his body by masses of blood. Hawks. How did it congeal so fast? Izuku started laughing as he used the congealed blood to pull his body back together. Once he was whole again, he used Hawk's confusion to knock him out with a single punch to the head. As his fight was over, Rumi looked at him, and saw him drooling, looking at Hawk's unconscious body. She watched him bend down and pick up the man's arm, brining it to his mouth. She moved quickly, picking up a piece of rebar, launching herself towards him, putting the bar in his mouth, and holding his head back. Rumi. Aiza, you're better than this, remember why you wanted to be a hero. He kept fighting against her, and she could tell the bar wouldn't last much longer. He reached up with his hand and she grasped it in hers. Rumi. Would your mother be proud of you if you ate someone? No, would Nana want you to wear to her cape? No, you wanted to be a hero to prove demons aren't all bad, be a hero, Aiza, let go. This seemed to hit something within his mind, as he stopped struggling. In his mind, he found himself being held by two people, his mother, Inko, and his grandmother, Nana. They looked at him, sympathetic smiles on their faces. Inko. My little boy, you're so strong, stronger than even I thought you could be. I'm so proud of you, and tell Rumi I approve of her. Nana. You're a good kid. I'm glad you're my grandson. Granny Nana will always be by your side, Izuku. INN. We love you, Izuku. Now go. Rumi and your friends need you. With that, he woke up in Rumi's arms. He started crying as he shrunk back down, horn and black marks disappearing. He then hugged her tightly, which she reciprocated. After a few minutes, Izuku calmed down and got up, helping Rumi walk. As they finally exited the crater made by the big fight, they noticed the crowd that had surrounded it. Rumi spied a news camera, dragged Izuku over to it, and gave him a kiss. Live on the news. The next few days would be one hell of a ride. Aftermath. Rumi had just kissed Izuku on live TV just after he had knocked out 2 heroes and nearly killed the number 3 hero Hawks. Granted, they hurt her and tried to kill him first. Suddenly the crowd behind the cameraman blew up with mixed reactions. Many awed the couple, but just as many yelled and called them disgusting. A reporter walked over and asked them a question. Reporter. What just happened? Rumi. Those heroes tried to kill Izuku for being a demon type. They hurt me and he got upset. As would you if you watched your significant other get hurt. Reporter. I see. Now just one more question. What will you two do about the storm this relationship will cause? They both shrugged. Rumi. We'll figure it out. Izuku. Reporter. Good luck. I personally hope you guys can make it through. You look cute together. Rumi. Thank you. Now come on, Izu, let's go. They both jumped away and started running back to the apartment. As they were running, a news copter started following them, but they were able to lose it after a while. Once they reached the apartment, Rumi immediately pulled Izuku in for a kiss. Rumi. I'm just glad you're okay. Izuku. Rumi. It's been a while, and my quirk's acting up again. Izuku nodded, picked her up, and carried her to their room. A few days passed. Constant messages and interview requests from news stations kept coming in, but were being ignored. Izuku and Rumi were relaxing on the couch when they heard a knock on the door. Izuku got up to answer it, finding All Might, Aizawa, and Niza on the other side. He let them in and led them over to the couch. Rumi. Who is it, Aizu? Izuku. She looked up as he sat down and saw their guests. She sat up as they sat across from them. Nizu. Thank you for letting us in. Now we're here to discuss a couple things. I'll let Aizawa and All Might begin. Aizawa. Thank you, sir. Now, because of the attacks that this year's Hero Course students have experienced, UA has decided to become a boarding school. The dorm system is being implemented as we speak and are unfortunately required for students to live in. Rumi. If I can't be there, then I don't think Izuku is going. Nizu. Which brings us to my next point. You and Midoriya are in a relationship. Normally I'd be quick to shut this down, but what I saw during that scuffle intrigued me. You, Mirko, normally cool-headed, freaked when Midoriya was in danger, and you, Midoriya, when she was hurt, you demonized. That's the only way I can put this. You incapacitated 2 strong heroes and nearly 8 hawks, just because they hurt Mirko. Rumi. Yes, but he didn't. I kept him back long enough to calm him. She noticed Izuku's guilt-ridden face, so she put her hand over his. Nizu. That's why I'm going to let this slide. You're clearly the only one able to keep him calm when he gets upset, which is also why I want you to move into the dorms too. We'll even give you 2 the same room. Izuku's face lit up. Izuku. Yes, really. Izuku hugged Rumi in excitement. Rumi. Thank you, Nizu. The 3 guests left after a while, leaving Izuku and Rumi to their own devices. Izuku was cooking a few minutes after they left when Rumi came up behind him and hugged him, resting her head on his shoulder. Rumi. Always thought it would be me receiving this, but this feels right. Anyway, just know that even if you did manage to get to that winged bastard, I'd still love you, Aizu. Izuku. They shared a soft kiss before she let him get back to cooking. They ate and went to sleep that night, closer than ever. Dorms. The alarm went off. Izuku reached over and turned it off. Rumi slowly stirred, letting him know she was awake as well. He looked up from her chest to see her smiling down at him. She yawned and started talking. Rumi. Last few hours here, Aiza. All our boxes were taken yesterday, so how about we just stay right here for a bit, huh? Izuku nodded and laid his head down, still looking at her. Rumi. Are they really that comfy? Izuku. Ah. She laughed a little and they just stayed in bed. Late, that's what they were. They fell back to sleep and were now an hour late. They sprinted through the UA gates and down a new path which led to the dorms. After a few minutes they found the one with a giant 1A on the front. Rumi. Finally. Let's go. She and Izuku walked up the steps and opened the doors to find an unamused Aizawa. Aizawa. You're La. Rumi. We know. Aizawa sighed and led them inside. Aizawa. Your room is on the 4th floor, all your boxes should be in there, go unpack. They nodded and went up to their room to find a lot of boxes. Rumi. Huh. Packed more than I thought. Doesn't matter, let's do this. Izuku. Ah. A few hours later Izuku and Rumi appeared in the common space after everyone else. They sat on one of the couches exhausted, and everyone looked at them. Rumi. Fine, ask away, just make it quick. The room exploded with questions until Ida and Yayorozu calmed the rest down. They started with a question from Shoji. Shoji. What happened? All I saw was Midoriya beat up 3 heroes. Rumi. They tried to kill him, that's what. And they hurt me to provoke him, which worked. They just didn't expect Aiza to be able to kick their asses into next month, literally. I think Empty Lady's still in the hospital from that kick. Izuku looked down in shame but was brought back up when Rumi placed her hand on his shoulder. Rumi. Who's next? Jairu raised her hand. Jairu. Why are you two here? Don't get me wrong, Midori is my friend, but I didn't think he'd be allowed back after that. Rumi. It's because Niza's not a dumbass, and saw what was actually happening. He saw me calm him down, so had me move in too. Tsu raised her hand. Rumi. Last one, what is it? Tsu. Well, Karo, I just wanted to know why you two haven't gotten on TV or the news to talk yet. Rumi. That's because it's really not worth the time, and whatever I say could be twisted into something completely bucking false. The girl nodded. After that everyone started talking like normal again. A few hours later and everyone was ready to head to their rooms, but Bakugo and Tsu had Izuku stay behind, which made Rumi stay too. Izuku. They both got red in their faces and started fidgeting. Tsu started talking but kept stopping, for once not able to speak her mind. Rumi. Just spit it out. Bakugo then started with the same, making Izuku and Rumi deadpan. Eventually they both seemed to get frustrated and just yelled it. BNT. We're dating, dammit / Karo. Izuku's eyes went wide as a smile crept onto his face, which confused his two friends. Rumi. Bucking finally. He's been waiting for this. Izuku started hopping in excitement as they walked away smiling and holding hands. Rumi chuckled at his antics. Rumi. Now let's go. You've got school in a couple days and I've got patrol tomorrow. As much as I'd like to stay up with you, Aizu, our sleep schedules need to stay semi-normal. Izuku looked at her and nodded, grabbing her hand and leading her up to their room. They laid down after getting ready and fell asleep, ready for whatever the next round of challenges threw at them. Ultimate moves. It was the first day of school since the students moved into the dorms. Class 1A was sitting in their classroom, waiting for Aizawa to walk in. While waiting, Izuku was texting Rumi. Aizu, waiting for Mr. Aizawa RN. He's running late again. Rumi, I figured. You should put your phone away though. I've gotta go, bank robbery down the road. Love you? Aizu, okay. Love you too, Rumi. He put his phone in his pocket as Aizawa walked into the room. Aizawa. Okay. As you all know, your summer training camp was interrupted. The reason we gave you all the training camp was to prepare you all for the professional licensing exam. Niza deemed it necessary since it seems you all run into danger head first no matter what we say. Moving on, to replace the training camp we will be training here. Put on your costumes and come with me. They did as they were told, and eventually he led them towards what they knew as Gym Gamma. Cementos came out from a door and walked over. Cementos. I'm sure Aizawa has already told you all why you're here, so I won't bore you with repeating it. This is Gym Gamma, also known as the Total Dining Land, or TDL for short. I personally designed it so I could create custom training terrain for students. Aizawa. Here you will be creating ultimate moves, improving moves already made, or creating new fighting styles, all to help you get on the same level as the second and third years you'll be competing with during the exam. Any questions? Ashido. Could you explain and give us some examples? Midnight then walked into view and stood next to Aizawa. Midnight. I can. An ultimate move is a technique you use to flip the fight into your favor, a move to ensure you win the fight. Ida's Recipro Burst could already be considered an ultimate move, or like All Might's smashes, just one would be good enough, but he made more and improved them over time. Oh, and Bakugo's Kamikaze style is a prime example of a fighting style. It changes up how he fights, and if he can actively switch between it and his normal fighting style, then he could win a lot of fights without ultimate moves by confusing villains. Ida. I had no idea it was anywhere near an ultimate move. Ectoplasm walked over too. Ectoplasm. And I will be here to provide clones to test your moves on and to see if they're lethal or not. Aizawa. With that said, let's start. Everyone pick a spot away from each other. If you can't get far enough away from someone else, Cementos will put you up higher. The class walked onto the concrete area and waited for Cementos. Izuku was left on the ground as a safety precaution because of his blood. After a few minutes, Aizawa, who noticed Izuku just sat down and started thinking, walked over. Aizawa. Midoriya, what's going through your head? Izuku started writing in the concrete. Izuku, you saw the fight? Aizawa. When you demonized? Yeah, why? Izuku. I remember being able to forcefully congeal my blood. I'm trying to remember how it felt so I could use it. Aizawa. Well, when you do, come get me so I can turn it off if it gets dangerous or anything. Izuku nodded and went back to thinking. A few more days passed with Izuku's situation remaining largely the same. Rumi had a day off and was sitting in front of him trying to help. Rumi. Maybe it's like when you ignite your blood. You told me it feels like a muscle, so maybe do something other than ignite it. Izuku. He got up and walked over to Aizawa, motioning to follow him. Aizawa did, and they went over to Izuku's ectoplasm clone. Izuku tore into his forearms and let the blood flow out. He then felt the familiar feeling of a new muscle. He tried to stretch it instead of a simple flex like usual, which caused the blood to congeal. Using the blood like new limbs sprouting from his arms, he started moving the globs of blood and shaped them into 4 feet 121.92 centimeters tentacles. Izuku Ra. Rumi. Whoa, that's cool. Aizawa. What can they do, Midoriya? Izuku swung an arm towards the ectoplasm clone, hitting it with the blood tentacle and sending it into a nearby concrete wall. He dropped his control over them and bent down to write. Izuku, I call it Blood Whip. I think I might be able to ignite them, but I'm not sure. After getting beat by Muscular, I decided need more range, so Blood Bullet and Blood Whip. Aizawa. Good thinking. There's still 3 days until the exam, so keep practicing with it. Also, if you really like the cape and waistcloth, I suggest you submit a redesign to the support department to add them to your official costume. Izuku. Aizawa walked off after that, leaving Izuku and Rumi, who decided to spar. Licensing Exam PT1. The class could be seen getting off their bus in their hero costumes, though there were some notable changes. Bakugo's boots had changed completely, now being made of lightweight metal, and the soles each containing metal funnels to turn his feet into thrusters. Kaminari had added a launcher that shot projectiles to focus his electricity. Ashido had added some metal plates to her shoes, and on a pair of gloves she also added to her costume. Izuku was the last to step off, white cape flowing once the breeze hit it. Aizawa turned to face the class. Aizawa. Alright, listen up. You are to be on your best behavior while you're here. Now, this exam is very important. Passing gives you all your provisional licenses, and as such no other school here will go easy on you for being first years. Now what will you do? Class? Go beyond plus. Ultra. The class all turned in surprise to look at who the foreign voice belonged to, only to see a tall boy with a shaved head, bowing so far his head hit the ground. He stood back up. Yorashi. Sorry about that, I just love UA so much I couldn't help butting in like that. I'm Inasa Yorashi, I'm excited to compete with you all today. His teacher and class then walked over, apologizing to Aizawa and 1A before dragging Yorashi away. Aizawa was about to have the class follow him when he heard a familiar voice. Joke. Yo, Eraser, remember me? Ms. Joke. Aizawa. Unfortunately, yes, I do remember you. She pulled out a pack of gum with a piece sticking put, pointing it at Aizawa. Aizawa. No thanks, it's probably a shock trap anyway. She just shrugged and glanced at his class, locking eyes with Izuku and walking over. Joke. So you're the kid that tamed the rabbit. Good job with that fight against Hawks and those other two. Izuku smiled. Izuku, ah. Just then one of her students, a boy with black hair, walked over and stuck his hand out to Izuku. Shindo. I'm Yo Shindo, nice to meet you, Midoriya, right? Not very often you meet a demon nowadays. Izuku took his hand but noticed the hateful look in his eyes and the venom he put into demon. Suddenly his arms started to vibrate violently, but instead of letting go, he just gripped tighter, making Shindo let go. Shindo. See you later. Izuku could tell his smile was forced but shrugged it off. Aizawa was finally able to lead the class inside and to the main hall where Izuku noticed many HPSC officials were present. He walked up to Aizawa and pulled his sleeve. When Aizawa turned, he could see how nervous they were making Izuku. Sighing, he decided to take care of it. Aizawa. It's okay, Midoriya. They wouldn't dare do anything here, not with the country's most popular first years being here too. This seemed to calm Izuku a little, who held back for a few seconds for Bakugo and Tsu to catch up. They then stopped moving and a tired-looking man appeared on stage. Mera. Hello everyone. Yon, I'm Yakumura Mera of the Hero Public Safety Commission. I'm here to oversee this exam. Yon, but I'm really tired, so let's just move on. The first portion of the exam will consist of Yon, you all wearing these targets, and the other examinees throwing these special magnetic balls to set them off. Once all 3 of your targets are lit up, you are out of the exam. To pass, you must eliminate 2 people. You don't have to hit 6 targets though, as only the last target will count as an elimination. Yon HPSC members will now distribute targets and balls. Oh yeah, don't put the targets in unreachable or inappropriate areas such as the armpits or groin, or you will be disqualified. Yon. Eventually 2 men, one with a box of targets, and the other with a box of balls, approached Izuku, Bakugo, and Tsu. They handed Bakugo and Tsu targets and balls but walked away before Izuku got any. Izuku. Ah? Ra. He looked around frantically for any other guys, but none were heading his direction. Izuku tapped Bakugo's shoulder. Bakugo. What is it, Izuku? Bakugo turned to see Izuku didn't have any and got angry. Using his boots, he started to go up and hovered above everyone else. Bakugo, yelling. Alright, who's the dumbass who didn't give my friend his targets and balls? Mera. Yon, and who is your friend? Bakugo, yelling. Izuku Midoriya, and if he doesn't get to participate, then neither will 1A so choose give him the stupid shit, or have to explain to the public why their favorite UA class walked out before the exam started. 1A yelling, yeah? Mera. Yon Midoriya? You mean the demon kid? He should have gotten them. Ugh, who's the one who skipped him? A man in a black suit raised his hand. Mera. Why, Mr. Garancia? Garancia, yelling. Because he shouldn't be here, he's a demon type, he's dangerous, he critically injured 3 heroes. Mera. And as we all know, it was to protect Mirko, who had been tired out by the previous battle and was attacked by those 3 heroes. Yon, any better arguments on why he shouldn't be here? Garancia shook his head. Mera. Then leave. We have no use for someone so close-minded. The man was about to argue, but 2 others escorted him out. A woman wearing the same attire brought Izuku his targets and balls. I apologize for him. Good luck. He smiled and she walked away. He then started putting his targets on as Bakugo landed. He hugged the blonde boy and let go before Bakugo could make him. Mera then began to speak once more. Mera. With that out of the way, we can now begin. You can work in teams or alone if you so wish. But for now, good luck. The room then started to unfold, revealing they were in the middle of the exam stadium. All the classes sprinted outwards, and the exam began. Licensing Exam PT2. Class 1A all rushed out from the now open room and into the giant stadium. Bakugo grabbed hold of Izuku and Tsu before flying off. Izuku. Ah? Bakugo. We'll be sitting ducks with everyone else. We need to make sure all three of us pass. After a minute, Bakugo landed on top of a building in a city area. All three walked to the edge of the roof to survey the area. Tsu. I wonder how well the others are doing. Kero. Bakugo. They'll be fine. Izuku. Ra. The other two turned to him, noticing Izuku was pointing down at a group of 4 students from a lower-ranking heroes school. Bakugo. Perfect. Izuku, use the blood whip thing to capture 2 of them. Me and Tsu will take the other 2. With that, the 3 jumped off the building. Izuku tore into his arms and created his blood whips. He was the first to land and wrapped the whips around 2 of the students. They called out, but before their classmates could do anything, Bakugo and Tsu landed on them. Wait, you're UA students, come on, man. Izuku walked up and tagged both students he captured before letting them go and allowing his whips to fall to the ground. Bakugo. Good, now go on to the waiting area, we'll catch up. Bakugo and Tsu tagged the students they were on as Izuku walked away. Mera's voice was then heard over the speakers. Mera. The first student has passed the first portion. Izuku smiled to himself as he made his way to the waiting area. When he got there, the same woman from earlier walked up to him with a small cylinder in her hand. Hi again. I'm just gonna take you targets off. Izuku nodded and she did so. He then read her ID badge. He crouched down and started writing in the floor. Izuku, thank you, Ms. Jorkaki. Jorkaki. You're welcome, Midoriya. But please refrain from messing with the floor. I can bring you a notebook and pen if you want. Izuku. Ah. She nodded and walked off, coming back a few minutes later with a small blue notebook and a pen. She gave them to him, and then started taking off the targets of other students who showed up. Izuku walked over to a nearby table with food and picked up a wrap sandwich before walking over to Wall and sitting down to eat. A few minutes later, Izuku took his last bite and watched as Bakugo and Tsu walked in. Izuku stood up and walked over to them, writing in the notebook. Izuku, you guys passed. Did you see any of the others? Bakugo. Yeah, actually. Ears, 3D printer, squid, tape dispenser, and Slimer got trapped in a building by another school. Tsu sighed. Tsu, Kero, Jairu, Yamamo, Shoji, Siro, and Mina were able to beat them though. But they still need more, so they'll be a bit longer. Kero. Bakugo, he knew. She giggled and kissed his cheek, making the blonde boy blush as he grumbled and sat by a nearby wall. She soon joined him and Izuku walked over to a small group of students to give them some time to themselves. Izuku. Ra. They turned to face him and he waved, a smile on his face. Of the group of 5, 2 smiled and waved back. The other 3 looked at him and their classmates in disgust. This saddened Izuku, who frowned and walked away. He found a chair and sat down to wait for the rest of the students. A few minutes of his wait later, and one student from the group walked over, an apologetic smile on her face. Hey, sorry about them. You're Midoriya, right? The demon kid dating Mirko? Izuku smiled and nodded. Oh, right. You don't know my name, sorry. I'm Tatama Nakagame. Izuku pulled out his notebook. Izuku, nice to meet you, Nakagame. She tilted her head in confusion. Nakagame. Why don't you talk? Izuku, as a trade-off for not needing human flesh, my quirk took my words. I can still make noise and I do know how to talk, my vocal cords are just incapable of making words. Nakagame. Oh, I see. Pretty cool, I love the shade of pink your eyes are, by the way. Izuku, thanks. Shindo. Hey, Tadame, why you talking to the demon? Nakagame. Because he's cool, yo, fire blood, demon form, dating a pro, kicking 3 pros, but you can't tell me that's not the definition of badass. Shindo. TCH, whatever. He's just another demon type, just waiting to gain people's trust so he can eat them. Nakagame. He doesn't eat people. His quirk doesn't let him talk as an exchange with needing to eat people. Shindo. Tell that to Hawks. She was about to argue when Izuku put his hand on her shoulder. He stepped in front of her and showed Shindo the notebook. Izuku, you're right, I almost did eat Hawks. But if someone hurt the ones you cared about, you'd resort to eating them too if you were mad enough. I've faced countless amounts of discrimination and violence. My mother was killed protecting me, so excuse me if I was letting off a little steam. Shindo. You're right. Keep making excuses. Come on, Tadame, let's go. He turned and started walking away. Nakagame. No. Shindo turned back around to face her, an angry look growing on his face. Shindo. What did you just say? He walked back up to her. Nakagame. I said no, yo. I don't have to do as you say. It was clear Shindo's anger way getting the best of him. Shindo yelling. My ass, you don't? You're my girl, you have to do what I say now. Come. With me. He went to grab her arm, but she used her quirk to pull it into her body. In response, he brought his other hand up and was about to slap her across the face when a big gloved hand caught his and a grenade-shaped gauntlet was put to his head. Tsu. Stop this, don't you want to be a hero? Kero. Bakugo. Walk away and you live bucker. Shindo yelling. And why are you two here? Bakugo yelling. What does it look like, dumbass? We're stepping up to protect, that's a hero's job. Tsu. Besides. Kero, if Midoriya stepped in, it would have caused more damage for him. Both. Now leave. Shindo ripped his hand from Tsu's grasp and walked away, grumbling the whole time. Bakugo lowered his gauntlet, and they both faced Nakagame and Izuku. Bakugo. You good, Izuku? He nodded. Nakagame. Thank you, both of you. I'm Tadame Nakagame. That was Yo Shindo, my now ex-boyfriend. Tsu. No need to thank us. Kero, any aspiring hero would do that. Nakagame. I assume you're both friends of Midoriya's? Bakugo. Please, he's basically my cousin. Nakagame looked between the two. Nakagame. But you look nothing alike. Bakugo groaned. Bakugo. I said basically. We're not blood related, our moms were really good friends. The name's Katsuki Bakugo. Tsu. And I'm Tsuyo Ajiri. Kero. Izuku pulled out the notebook once again. Izuku, they're dating. Nakagame. Oh nice, anyway I'd better go. I wanna stick around my class to make sure Shindo can't do something. You three have fun preparing, hope we all pass. She smiled and waved as she ran off towards her class, at least the ones that passed the first portion.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.